We are Baltimore. We are Southwest.
Texas Rangers baseball is presented by AT&T UVerse TV. Well, a gorgeous evening here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. We are at Target Field in downtown Minneapolis. The Rangers and the Minnesota Twins getting set to kick off this three-game series. And it's that time. How about the American League wild card race? The Blue Jays on top. They are hot, and they are one game ahead of the Angels. Then, fighting for the second wild card spot, the Orioles 2 back. Then your Rangers 3.5 back tied with the Rays. And the Minnesota Twins 4 back in that race. So it should be a dandy coming down to the line. Welcome in, everyone, along with Tom Greaves, Steve Busby. Glad you could join us for Ranger baseball tonight as they get to take on the Twins, who are their closest pursuers right now, Tom.
Yeah, and I guess there's a lot of ways of looking at this, Buzz. The good news is the Rangers are in the thick of it.
Yep.
The bad news is there's a lot of teams that are in the thick of it. There's a lot of teams to contend with. But the good part of that is, Buzz, the Rangers play these teams a lot. So they have a chance to determine their own destiny. When you look at their home games, they have 3 against the Rays, the Orioles, the Blue Jays, 4 against the Astros and the Angels. Those are all home games. On the road, they play the Twins, the Astros, the Angels. When you look at the remaining games that they have, half the remaining games that the Rangers have this year will be against teams right in the middle of this wild card race. That's the good news. The Rangers can almost determine their own destiny by the way they play against these teams.
Well, that they can, and no better time to start than tonight as they take on the Twins. In the first of 3, Giovanni Gallardo will be on the hill. For the Rangers, we'll come back with more from Minnesota right after this on Fox Sports Southwest. Your Texas Ford dealers. Visit your local Texas Ford dealer to kick off the summer right. Ford is the best in Texas. By AT&T UVerse TV. Uverse has more live TV channels on the go than cable. And by Southwest Airlines. Book your low fare now at southwest.com. Well, a great evening here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Home of the Minnesota Twins, Target Field. And before we get things underway, let's sit down and check in with Emily Jones. Em?
Well, Buzz, a great night for baseball here in Minnesota, and the Rangers anxious to get things going after the off day tomorrow and recognize the challenge at hand and the opportunity they have here in Minnesota, and admit there's a little something extra when you're going up against a team who's neck and neck with you in the standings and this late in the season.
You always want to beat the teams that are in front of you. It makes it easier to climb the ladder. This team is started playing really well, and now it's sluggish a little bit, but, they're a really good team, so we hopefully we can at least win the series. But, I think ahead, every game is important for us. It doesn't matter who we play, but we're trying to come out trying to at least win the series.
So definitely, maybe not a heightened sense of urgency, but definitely maybe some more intense feelings going into this series as the Rangers look to take the opener tonight against the Minnesota Twins, the first of 3 here in the Twin Cities. We'll have the first pitch and the lineups coming for you right after this.
It's a great venue for Twins baseball. Rangers in town tonight to start the first of 3. Now Tom is going to tell you about the Southwest Airlines Texas Rangers starting lineup.
Well, the Rangers are going to start off with Delino DeShields, followed by Shin-Soo Choo. Shin-Soo has reached safely in all 15 of his games since the All-Star break. Prince Fielder's batting third. Adrian Beltre is fourth. Mitch Moreland, a .393 hitter in August, is batting fifth, followed by Josh Hamilton and Elvis Andrus. Rougned Odor is batting eighth, and Chris Jimenez, with hits in 4 straight games and a .429 average over those 4 games, is batting ninth.
That lineup put forth by Jeff Bannister, and that lineup will be facing the 27-year-old right-hander Kyle Gibson. Gibson out of University of Missouri at Columbia. Gibson 8-9 this year, and the young man has come on to pitch some very good baseball. A basic pitcher in that he has fastball, slider. He will change speeds on those 2 pitches. He has pretty good command, and he produces one of the highest rates of ground balls in the American League. He's already had better than 22 double plays turned behind him And Ranger hitters, therefore, will try and make him get the ball up in the strike zone. Rangers have not had a whole lot of luck. This is Gibson's third career start against the Rangers. He's held them to just 2 runs in 16 innings prior to tonight. And let's take a look at the Twins defense behind Kyle Gibson this evening. This Minnesota group right in the middle of the pack defensively. Ryan Dozier, the second baseman, leads all American League second baseman at .993 fielding percentage. He was an all-star this year. Rosario, Hicks, and Hunter in the outfield. Joe Mauer joins Dozier and Escobar and Trevor Plouffe at the hot corner. Kurt Suzuki is catching tonight. So ready to get things underway. Rangers come in a .500 team. They are 55-55. They are 4.5 games behind the Houston Astros in that American League West. And Gibson deals strike one to Delino DeShields. Delino a .261 average. No home runs, 22 driven in. Gibson back to him. Misses inside. A 79-degree evening. Beautiful night, low humidity, wind out of the north, light breezes about 7 miles an hour. And that is made the humidity drop. Very comfortable evening here in Minnesota. 1-2 now to Delino. Rangers against the Twins earlier this year down in Arlington, 1-2 out of 3. This used to be a difficult assignment for the Rangers, to say the least, when Target Field first opened. Rangers had no luck here at all. They went 9 out of the first 10 games that they played the Twins. That has turned around a bit lately. Shot foul, and it's still 1-2. Matter of fact, since the end of the first 2 seasons, starting in 2012, the Rangers have won 8 of the last 11 here at Target Field. Gibson into the wind, and again the 1-2 pitch. To right field, Hunter toward the line. He's going to have to play it on a hop. And getting aboard to start things off, Delino DeShields for all the Rangers here in the first.
That feels good for Delino to start this game off with a base hit. He had a tough game against Felix Hernandez. He struck out 4 times in that ball game. That doesn't really differentiate him from a lot of American League hitters. Still, to come out right off the bat in the first game back here in Minnesota, started off with a line drive to right field. Good feeling for Delino. Get something started here, get a rally going right off the bat.
And let's see if Delino can add a little pressure to Kyle Gibson right from the beginning. Shin-Soo Choo stepping in, hitting second tonight. Delino a bluff move, and he stops very quickly. 1 ball, no strikes. Choo a .239 hitter. 14 home runs, 50 RBI. Choo and Rougned Odor have been moving in and out of their respective 2nd and 8th spots in the lineup. Jeff Bannister asked about that today, and he said, I just felt like this was a better lineup tonight with Choo hitting second. I think that pretty well sums up the reason for it.
That's why the manager is the manager, to make those kind of decisions.
Well, both left-handed hitters have the ability to look at a lot of pitches and also pull the ball effectively. You're not really giving up or gaining much with either one of them in the 2 spot or 8 spot. That's outside. 2 balls, no strikes.
The lineup for a manager always looks good when the guys in the lineup are hitting the ball well. When the guys aren't hitting, then the lineups start to get questioned and you start to wonder. But, you know, there's only so many ways you can put the lineup together. And if the guys hit, the lineup looks great.
A little quicker move, and Delino scrambling back out of that throw by Kyle Gibson. Delino 18 out of 21 this year. That's an 86% success rate. That's among the tops in the American League. And Choo taking that pitch off the outside corner. 3 balls and no strikes. So Gibson maybe paying a little too much attention to Delino DeShields at first. Maybe trying to be too fine with the pitch.
I think he's trying to make that pitch that you mentioned when you said 22 double play balls. Try to throw the sinker away and get the ground ball to second.
3-0. That is right down the middle. Choo hitting second, trying to join Delino DeShields on base. Prince Fielder, the DH, will follow. Rangers lost 2 out of 3 in Seattle over the weekend. Enjoyed the off day yesterday. Coming here with more or less a fresh slate. That's out of play, and the count now has gone full. Chu has reached base safely in all of the games that he's played in since the All-Star break. All 15 of them. And in the starts that he's had, he has hit .333. Twins, as you can see in that overshift, Delino a pretty good lead at first. And he draws another throw from Kyle Gibson. And you would think that Delino, if he can get a jump, a halfway decent jump, would be moving on this 3-2 pitch. We'll see how the Rangers play it here in the first inning. Gibson, a belt high set. There goes the runner. The pitch outside, ball 4, and there are 2 on for Prince Fielder. A single and a walk. First 2 Rangers reach, and now comes their hottest RBI man, Prince Fielder.
Gibson has struggled in his last 4 starts. He's 0-3. He had 1 good start out of 4. His last start, though, at Toronto, a lot of people have struggled recently at Toronto, but he only pitched 4 2/3, 9 hits and 8 runs.
Fielder batting .325 for the year. And he takes strike 1. Prince, the team leader, 66 RBIs, 17 home runs. Both those the tops on the Ranger club. Career against the Twins, 78 ball games for Fielder, a .297 average. And he's got Delino to Shields at second, Shin-Soo Choo at first. Rangers with runners in scoring position since the break have been good. Very good, as a matter of fact. They're hitting .293 with runners in scoring position. That's raised their season batting average some 15 points, gone from .230 to .245. One and one to Fielder. Line drive right field. Hunter to his right makes the catch. DeShields tagging, trying to advance to third. He will, as the throw is cut off by Escobar. A rope off the bat of Prince Fielder. Didn't find turf, but he was able to pull it to the right side to get Delino DeShields over to third.
That's a pitch sinking out of the strike zone that Prince still hit pretty hard. And there's not many runners who could be in the same position Delino was in, breaking a little bit toward third, to have the quickness to get back and just pretty much trot into third base safely. A lot of guys would have taken so much time to get back to second, they might not have been able to go to third base. But his quickness made it no big deal.
He was a third of the way toward third before he put the brakes on.
It looked like a base hit to right field off the bat, I'm sure. He picked it up and realized it was going to go farther than that.
Adrian Beltre taking strike 1. Here's what we were talking about.
Whoops, better get back. Now he sees it, and off he goes. Most guys can't go back and get started that quickly, and then get from second to third as quickly.
So Delino 90 feet away with the first run of the night. Adrian Beltre trying to pick him up as he takes outside. And the count moves to 2-0. Beltre at .260. 9 home runs, 30 driven in. Adrian having a tough trip, just 1 for 13 in that series in Seattle. You go back over the last 5 ball games, Beltre just 3 for 20. Chu at first, getting the lead as DeShields comes down the line from third. Up the middle, this could be a couple. Escobar on to first, and Gibson gets another ground ball double play turned behind him. That takes care of the Ranger. Good looking first as it started out, but the Rangers strand 1, do not score. Scoreless after a half inning. The Twins starting lineup.
Aaron Hicks starts off in center field, followed by All-Star Brian Dozier. 56 extra base hits. That's the second most in the American League for Dozier. Joe Mauer hits third. Miguel Sano bats fourth. The Twins' #2 prospect, big power hitter, Trevor Plouffe, bats fifth. Torrey Hunter is fifth, 40 years old and still a frontline player. Eddie Rosario is seventh. He's a .353 hitter at Target Field. Kurt Suzuki bats eighth, and Eduardo Escobar is the ninth place hitter.
And Giovanni Gallardo going to work, and the first pitch is fouled off by Aaron Hicks. Very quickly, one strike on the switch hitting leadoff man. Our progressive scouting report on Giovanni Gallardo. He's been trying to quicken up his pace just a bit. He felt that his command would probably get better. The consistency would be there if he could just speed it up a little bit in between pitches. That's a bigger change than it might sound like. It's not as simple as just saying, all right, I'm going to work more quickly. I mean, that goes back to the pace that you feel comfortable with. And to make tweaks in that is not the easiest thing. But Giovanni is searching for that elusive consistency that he had about 2 months ago. And back in June, he had it going pretty well. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Giovanni, that .347 ERA. It's gone up about a half a run in the last 3 outings. And Hicks, another foul ball off to the left. Well, Aaron Hicks, you remember last year, a highly touted prospect for the Twins for the last several years. Brought him up last year and the year before. But Hicks got so frustrated at one point last year, he gave up switch hitting. They're just having so much trouble. And he's picked it back up again. The Twins feel that he is a complete player. If he can just stay with that, he'll be fine. Outside 2-2. But to utilize his speed and be able to hit at the top of the order, play center field, he certainly has all the tools you would want. The other player that we saw make his major league debut down in Arlington, Byron Buxton, just about ready to come back to the big leagues. Elvis near the bag at second, throws out Hicks, 1 gone. Now let's take a look at the rest of the Ranger defense. It's delivered to you tonight by Break Check. Behind Giovanni Gallardo this evening, a very familiar-looking Ranger defense. The Shields flanked by Chew and Hamilton in the outfield. Mitch Moreland at first. No errors in his last 58 games. That's almost 500 total chances. He anchors that infield of Odor and Andrews up the middle in Beltre. And Chris Jimenez getting the start behind the plate tonight. Now 1 up, 1 away here for the Twins. Brian Dozier, home run hitting second baseman up there. He is something. Dozier was the leadoff man for a good part of the year for Minnesota, then moved down to #2 when Hicks got installed as the leadoff man. 22 of his 24 home runs have come as a leadoff hitter. And Elvis will throw him out. 2 gone.
Well, good sign so far through 2 hitters. Giovanni's doing what you said, Buzz, working quickly. And he's also doing what he's done when he's pitching well, and that's get ground balls.
Yep.
2 weakly hit ground balls, as a matter of fact. Routine rollers to shortstop. Good start so far.
Keep the ball off the good part of the bat. Yep. Now 2 away, and here is the veteran Joe Mauer. Mauer, a .266 average with 7 home runs and 47 RBI. Hitting that number 3 slot for Paul Molitor's club. Against the Rangers, he's been pretty well bottled up by Ranger pitching. Just a .230 career average. That's the lowest that he has against any American League team. Rangers have been able to mix up going away and inside to him pretty effectively. He has hit probably more jam shots against the Rangers than against anybody. Seems like the Rangers have set him up very well, handled him on the inside part of the plate. And they go away here. Gallardo gets the strike. It's 1-2.
Yeah, the other thing about Mauer hitting in the middle of the lineup is he used to walk a lot. He doesn't walk as much as he used to. And if you're a pitcher, I think you look at him and say, well, he's batting third, but he's really not a home run threat. There's no need to pitch so carefully to him that you walk him, especially in this ballpark now.
Yeah.
The last 5 years, he's averaged 7 home runs a year. And one of those years, he only had 300 at bats. But still, the point is, he's really not a power threat batting in the middle of the lineup.
Gallardo reading the signs. Now the 2-2 pitch. 3-2. Well, Mauer hitting third, trying to get aboard with 2 outs here in the first inning. Miguel Sano, a powerful young DH, waiting in the on-deck circle. Gallardo rocks into the wind. A 3-2 pitch is lined to right field. Chu over to get it. He cuts it off. Mauer, a big turn at first, hangs on. Oh, a 2-out single for Mauer. Chu looked like he couldn't decide whether to go after it or lay back.
Yeah, I think at the end he realized he wasn't going to catch it, and he laid back and was able to cut it off. I thought for a minute it was going to bounce and skip by him. Mauer hits it fairly well into right center field. Chu is kind of going after it and then curves back and catches it before it can get by him. So with 2 outs, keep it to a single and should be okay.
So Mauer at first. Here's Miguel Sano. And the big guy takes the pitch low and outside for ball 1. Sano at 6'4", 262 pounds. Third baseman by trade, but handling the DH chores for the Twins more often than not. That's out of play on the first base side. 1 ball and 1 strike. Sano turned 22 back in May, the middle of May. He's from San Pedro de Macorís in the Dominican Republic. He has reached base safely in 27 of his first 31 major league games. 1-1 from Gallardo. 2 balls and a strike. Sano started this year at Double-A Chattanooga for the Twins. Had 15 home runs in 66 games out of Double-A, and Twins said that's enough. Come on up, we can use that here. That's a little bit low, and it's 3-1. And watching this young man during batting practice today, he launched some pretty impressive bolts. Now, granted, it's only batting practice, but still got to be powerful to get the ball over the backdrop in center field into that deck that is above the hitter's eye back there. 3-1 from Gallardo. Inside corner, 3-2. Sano was a couple of steps down toward first. Will retrace his steps very gingerly. Doesn't want to make home plate umpire Dan Bellino upset. No, 2 outs, a 3-2 count. Mauer will be off and moving with the next Gallardo pitch. It's on the way. Popped up, foul. That will get back into the seats. Twins a game under 500 this year, 55 and 56. Playing well at home, though. They're 34 and 22 here at Target Field. Paul Molitor's club, having had a disastrous road trip, went 1-6. The trip they just completed to Toronto and Cleveland. And low ball 4. Sano, we hear, has one of the better eyes that you'll find on a 22-year-old. Eyeballed that pitch that was just a bit low. So 2 on, 2 out, and Trevor Plouffe coming up.
One thing over Giovanni's last 6 or 7 starts that's been pretty much constant is he's thrown a lot of pitches. He's only pitched 6 innings in one of his last 6 or 7 starts. He's trying to be careful, trying to make good pitches, but that's causing him to throw a lot of pitches. And already in this game, after getting the first 2 hitters and getting ahead of Mauer, he'll be throwing his 21st pitch to Plouffe.
Plouffe steps in hitting .248. He is over his last 9 trips to the plate, so a bit of an offensive downturn, but 15 home runs, 61 driven in. Giovanni, a check of second. The pitch to Plouffe is high for ball 1. other thing that Giovanni has had trouble doing is putting a cap on a rough inning once it got going. Lately, it's turned out to be a 2 or 3 run inning for him instead of being able to just knock it to one harmless run at times. Just hasn't been able to keep it under control.
He's not throwing enough strikes.
Yeah.
Pretty much as simple as that. Get the first 2 hitters out in 8 pitches and get ahead of Mauer. He got a chance to get him quickly. End up with a long at bat. Get a base hit. Now walk. Now it's two balls to another good hitter.
2-1, the called strike. Gallagher did get the win last time out. He worked 5 innings against the Astros. Rangers won that 4-3. High and tight, 3-1. So Giovanni struggling here after 2 outs. Trevor Plouffe hitting 5th. Torrey Hunter, the veteran right fielder, will follow. Plouffe with 2 outs, runners in scoring position. Fouls that out of play. So now both base runners will have the advantage of a running start. Bauer from second, Sano from first. Ranger infield playing Plouffe a couple of steps around to the left. So you had Rougned Odor, the second baseman, close to being lined up with the bag in the mound. Gallardo ready. Runners on the move. Payoff pitch. Chopper in the hole, and Elvis has that. That will do it. Took a little more work than Giovanni Gallardo had wanted, but the side retired. No runs, a hit, 2 left. After 1, scoreless in the Twin Cities. Southwest Data's strong fan, and you just might see yourself on an upcoming broadcast. All this brought to you by the good folks at T-Mobile. We'll show you our selection for tonight a little bit later on. Mitch Moreland to start things off for the Rangers here in the second inning. Scoreless ball game. Moreland, Hamilton, and Andrews to face Kyle Gibson. Mitch at .294 average as he takes a knee-high strike. Moreland had been in a little bit of an offensive downturn, but he's got things going in the right direction. 5 out of 10 on this trip. He is hit in 4 straight, going 7 for 14.
One thing we saw from Gibson in the first inning, Buzz, is what you alluded to with the double plays. That's really helped him this year. The other thing is, with men in scoring position, he only gives up a .213 average. So the Rangers had a man in scoring position. It was a double play situation. The Rangers couldn't score, couldn't get a hit with a man in scoring position, and Gibson got another double play ground ball. helps bail you out of a lot of jams.
Yeah.
So even though he's been struggling recently, overall he's had a nice solid season.
Yeah, and it's not, as we've talked about, Tom, it's not just Kyle Gibson struggling recently. It's the entire Twins pitching staff, the starting staff.
Yep.
For the Twins. They've really struggled. And Mitch couldn't check his swing. Nice pitch down and in. And Gibson, his first strikeout, one away. Josh Hamilton will be next.
Throws a lot of sinkers, and that's a good hard slider. Good pitch. Not a huge breaker, but a good sharp breaking hard slider down and in. That's going to get a lot of swings and misses from left-hand hitters. Tough to lay off that pitch. I think it's a sinker down and in, turns into be something that drops a lot more.
Hamilton takes the fastball up and in for ball one. Josh, a .250 average, 5 home runs, and 19 RBI. 2-0. Going back to the Twins pitching we were talking about, this is the last road trip for the Twins. Look at these numbers. Now, the starters worked 27 innings. The relievers worked 29, almost 30 innings.
The starters worked less than 4 innings a start.
Yeah. ERA of 13.83 for the starters, 5.46 for the bullpen. The bullpen needed to have oxygen after the ball game.
That's why they got 9 guys out in their bullpen today.
That's right. That's right. Boy, what a stretch. 8 or more runs in all those ball games. All the last 5 ball games. Hamilton, a solid base hit to right. So Josh aboard. 1 on, 1 out. Elvis Andrus coming up.
Yeah, even with the shift, with the second baseman deep and over, Josh was still able to find a hole. You see that sinker, he was trying to throw it down and in, got it up and out over the plate. Josh put a good swing on it and hit it hard into right field.
No, second Ranger hit of the night. Hamilton aboard. Now Elvis comes up, hitting at .255. Elvis, 4 home runs. He has driven in 39 this year. 1 out of 7 in his career against Kyle Gibson. Gibson, knee-high strike, nothing in 1. Last 10 ball games, Elvis really has it going. At 311 mark. That ball's hammered to left field. Going back, Rosario at the wall. Goodbye. Elvis Andrus, a line drive home run, his 5th of the year. The Rangers on top 2-0.
You know, we've been talking about Elvis for a long time now, and the improvements that are gradually starting to take shape as the season winds down. And they're starting to happen more often now. Earlier in the year, occasionally, you'd see him pull a ball like that with authority. As time has gone on, you've started to see it more often. And over the last 3 weeks to a month, starting to see it on a fairly regular basis. There's a hanging slider right down the middle of the plate. Great pitch to hit. But instead of lining a base hit to the outfield, he lines it out of the ballpark for a 2-run Ranger lead. That's a nice development in this season. The improvement with Elvis and his ability to drive the ball to left field. He's reached the stage of his career where, you know, you start to say, okay, is Elvis what you've seen is what you get, or is there more there? And I think because of the changes that he's made and the way he's stayed with those changes, starting to see maybe there is a little bit more there. Hopefully a lot more.
Odor grounds out, 2 gone. And Chris Jimenez coming up. Yeah, it's not just, you know, we've seen it long enough now, I think, Tom, but the last 3 weeks or so, we've seen him line drives to left field that he's never hit before.
No.
And I've got to think that's, yeah, there is more. There is that there. Can be consistently. Does that mean he's going to be a 20 home run guy? No. But he certainly has the ability to have 40 doubles.
Yeah, and, you know, if he turns into a guy that hits 280 with more doubles and more home runs, maybe he goes from 4 to 10 and from 31 doubles to 40 doubles. Then he drives in more runs, he scores more runs, and he's a much more productive hitter. Right. So it's a nice development. Still a short period of time, and you want to see it over a longer period of time, but you have to start somewhere, and it's a good start.
1 ball, 1 strike to Jimenez. Chris fouls that next pitch back. They got a pretty good piece of Kurt Suzuki. Home plate umpire Dan Bellino going to go out and give Suzuki an opportunity to recuperate from that foul tip.
We're going to do our shout outs then, as long as we've got a second. I want to say hi to Jan Presley. She's the mom of Ryan Presley. Ryan stopped by to see you today, Buzz. He was one of your pupils when you were teaching pitching way back when. Ryan's on the disabled list right now with the Twins. Wants to be sure to say hi to his mom, Jan. Randy and Claudine Geisel, great Ranger fans. They travel all over to watch the Rangers. They're in Minneapolis to watch the team. They want to say hi to everyone back home, especially their niece Lexi. Have a shout out to Scary. That's right, Scary. He's a commentator, I guess you would say, on MLB.com. Follows T.R. Sullivan very closely. T.R. wanted to make sure that we wish him best, hope he's feeling better. And the last one, I'm not even going to say it. I'm going to spell it Giuapp. I don't even want to say it because I'll say it wrong. But they'd like to say hello to the Texas Rangers Women's Club. Hi to everybody back in Texas from Lou. And I'm sure everyone in the Rangers Women's Club knows exactly who I'm talking about and how to pronounce it. And I'm sorry I don't.
And Jimenez gone on strikes. Now Gibson gets a punch out. But Elvis Andrus unloads his 5th home run of the year. A blast to left field with Hamilton on. Rangers 2 runs on 2 hits. Nobody left. After 1.5, the Rangers 2 and the Twins nothing. You buy your Texas Ford dealers. Bottom of the 2nd inning, Torrey Hunter leading off against Giovanni Gallardo. The Rangers have given Gallardo a 2-0 lead to protect. It'll be Torrey Hunter, Eddie Rosario, and Kurt Suzuki. And Hunter, a rip and a miss. It is 1 ball and 1 strike. Torrey hitting at .248, 18 home runs, 60 RBI. Torrey already with the most home runs he's had in a year since 2011 when he was with the Angels.
That's pretty amazing. 40 years old and probably going to end up hitting 25 home runs.
That's something.
And he doesn't run like he used to, but he's still an excellent outfielder with a strong arm. And the thing that he's always had is presence among his teammates in the clubhouse.
Yeah, and you would think this is an ideal situation for him with the young outfielders they have.
Coming back to the team he started with.
Sure. Behind the bag, Beltre. A full throw, dugout by Moreland. He got Hunter by a stick.
What a play all the way around. I thought it was a foul ball. Adrian goes into left field practically and throws an accurate throw, but a tough ball to handle because this ball bounces somewhat out in front of Mitch. And it's, again, another example of how good he is at picking those balls out of the dirt. It's just almost automatic with him over there.
And Torrey Hunter. Torrey might have been thinking on his way down to first, I got a base hit on. Yeah, wrong.
That's what I would have been thinking.
Oh, great play by the tandem of Beltre and Moreland. One out, and Eddie Rosario slaps the next pitch back. How about Adrian?
Well, just getting to it is tough enough. Getting something on the throw while you're going toward the stands, and then you hope that Mitch is going to pick it, and he did.
Another one out of play. You know, we talked about Moreland not having any errors in his last 500 or so chances. And these are not routine chances either. He's been able to do this more often than not.
Yeah, and he would have saved probably 5 or 6 errors from the infielders this year. That I don't think that would have been an error on Adrian. That would have gone as a base hit. But there's been a lot of balls, routine plays, that the infielders just made a bad throw. And Mitch has picked it. It's gone down as a routine 5-3, 6-3, 4-3. But it would have been an error on any one of the infielders if Mitch hadn't been picking them like that.
1-2 pitch. Got him swinging. Giovanni Gallardo gets his first strikeout of the night. There are 2 gone. And Kurt Suzuki stepping up.
Well, much better. The first 2 hitters of the second inning, going right after him, throwing strikes, pounding the strike zone.
Folks, on Sunday, as long as we're talking about Adrian Beltre, August 16th, the first 15,000 fans will be treated to a Medical Center Arlington Adrian Beltre bobblehead. Join us to see the Rangers take on the Rays and get your collectible bobblehead. Visit TexasRangers.com or call 972-RANGERS for your tickets. Put that bobblehead anywhere you want to, and it'll pick up all the dirt around your house for you. Or whatever else needs to be picked up. Kurt Suzuki batting at .229. He's kind of come back down to a little lower level. Suzuki, you remember, had a very solid year last year. His first full year with the Minnesota Twins, he had .288. Played in 131 games for Minnesota. This year, not so much. Although at home, as those numbers would tell you, the last 19 games he's hit very well. And this Twins team has hit very well here at home. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Giovanni Gallardo making a concerted effort to get the ball, get back up on the mound, and work a little more quickly. 2-2. Suzuki back into the batter's box. Gallardo studying the signs, picks 1 out. Low, ball 3. Well, kind of like the first inning when Gallardo got 2 quick outs, then had to face 3 more hitters to get the final one. He's got Hunter and Rosario pretty briskly. Kurt Suzuki has run the count full. Payoff pitch on the way. Popped him up. Elvis near the bag at second. And that'll do it. It is indeed a 1-2-3 inning. Nice job by Gallardo and the Rangers. Twins are gone in order. After 2, it's the Rangers 2, the Twins nothing.
the Rangers are on top of the Twins by a score of 2-0. And this is a new addition this year to Target Field. It's called the Barrio here in left field. And as you could probably tell by the name, it's a bar where you can also watch baseball. Some fans behind me, I think, want to make an appearance by screaming annoyingly, and so they're doing so. So thanks to everyone behind me for doing that. But also another very cool thing about this location is about 30 yards behind me. About 30 yards behind me, as Delano DeShields gets on base with a single there, is a train station. So it will literally drop you off right at the left field gate, which is a pretty cool way to enter the game. Then you can head in here to the Barrio, take in all the action on the field. Also, Target Field was voted and named the greenest ballpark in all of baseball. And a lot of cool things they've got going on here to sustain energy and conserve water and all those things. Obviously, that guy not conserving his voice, but I will tell you, a lot of stuff being conserved here at Target Field, minus that guy's annoying screams. Guys?
All right, Em, thank you. Live TV, nothing like it.
No.
And Delano DeShields did indeed begin things with his second hit of the night. It was a smash off the glove of Escobar, the shortstop. So Delano aboard, again, starting off an inning. Started off the first that way, now starting off the third. Here's Chu. Out of play to the left, and the count moves to no balls and 2 strikes. Chu drew a walk his first time to the plate. Rangers 2 runs on 4 hits. Twins no runs on just 1 hit against Giovanni Gallardo. Kyle Gibson reading the signs from Kurt Suzuki. The right-hander's ready. Hector Ortiz, first base coach for the Rangers, with an ever-present stopwatch, timing the moves of the pitcher, whether going to first or going home. First movement to pitch hit in the catcher's glove. See what the time is of that. See what the time is from the moment he makes a discernible move toward first until the ball gets there. The information age of baseball, you got to have all those splits down. Gibson again ready. And Chu trying to check his swing, he couldn't. The appeal down to third base umpire Paul Schreiber, who said, no, that is a swing. Third strikeout for the right-hander Gibson. 1 gone, and Prince Fielder is next.
Yeah, I think he got into no man's land there. Usually a pitch that Chu doesn't offer at that high fastball.
Prince Fielder lined to right field. Torrey Hunter made a nice running catch to his right. The 0 for 1 tonight. Fielder coming off back-to-back multi-hit games in Seattle. He is still the major league leader in multiple hit games. He's tied now with Ian Kinsler, both of them with 44 games of 2 or more hits. One ball, 1 strike. Delano, a little bluff move towards second on that last pitch. Infield not in an extreme overshift. They are definitely favoring the right side as you get a nice overhead shot to Escobar, the shortstop. Only a couple of steps to the shortstop side of second. Good fastball in on the fists of Prince Fielder. 1-2. So far, Kyle Gibson does not look like a guy that gave up 8 runs his last time out in less than 4 innings.
No, he's got quality stuff. 92-mile-an-hour sinker, hard slider, pretty good changeup. Well, for the season, coming into the game, he'd given up less hits than innings pitched. Decent amount of strikeouts, not a lot of strikeouts. A lot of sinker ball pitchers aren't really strikeout pitchers. They depend on their infielders to make plays on all the ground balls they get. And he gets a lot of ground balls. His ground ball ratio is 2.46, which puts him among the leaders in the league as far as percentage of ground balls gotten, and has led to a lot of double plays.
Well, Brent's walking around after that foul ball took a chunk out of his right foot. Dan Bellino, the home plate umpire, commiserating with him a bit. A ball and 2 strikes, 1 on, 1 out in the top of the 3rd inning. Gibson a look over his left shoulder at Delino to Shields. That's a pretty big lead. 2-2 now. Now Fielder not only leading in multi-hit games, he's also 2nd in hits in the American League with 137. 3rd in on-base percentage, 7th in total bases. 3rd in highest road average. And 2nd in average against right-handed pitchers. Very consistent year for Prince Fielder offensively. First downturn that he had been 15, 18 games or so. Looks like he's coming out of that very nicely. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Little looper out toward center field. It falls for a hit.
That was a great deke. He deked me, I'll tell you that. I thought he was going to catch it.
Delino was completely fooled. Both Dozier and Escobar acting as if they had a play on the ball.
Well, if it was a slow run, watch the second baseman. He puts his hands up like he's going to catch the ball right here. And Delino stopped and was actually very close to first base. Obviously, he's fast enough to get to second. But had he read it all the way, he might have gotten to third.
Yeah.
At least kept him at second. That was pretty good. I couldn't tell where the ball was. I said, man, I thought that was a hit. Second baseman's going to catch it.
No, 1st and 2nd now with 1 out. Here's Adrian Beltre for his 2nd at bat. Takes that breaking ball for strike 1.
That was a good pitch by Gibson. He got it way in on the fist to Prince. And maybe a hitter not quite so strong, it would have been a pop up to second, but Prince is so strong he was able to get it into the outfield for a Texas leaguer.
The Shields at 2nd, Fielder at 1st. 0-1, the count to Beltre. Slowly hit foul outside 3rd. We'll come back and try it at 0-2. Adrian grounded into a 6-3 double play in the 1st inning. That ended what looked like a promising Ranger start. At 1st and 3rd with 1 out when Beltre rolled into that twin killing, so to speak.
Very good, Buzz.
I guess it'd be the other way around, but that's okay.
I know what you meant.
Gibson a long look in. Now the right-hander making the throw to second and just back in time. Delino to Shields, a time play with Dozier breaking to the bag. And it looked like he was breaking as soon as Gibson started into his stretch motion. And Gibson knew that he would be breaking, so he wheeled and threw and almost got Delino. Twins over the years, one of the best organizations at the fundamental aspects of pitching, and that's one of them. Pickoff plays. A couple things you always knew about Twins pitchers that came to the big leagues. They knew how to field their position, and they always were able to throw a good breaking ball for a strike.
Yep. And they did throw strikes too.
Yep.
And back Brad Radke and all those guys, they all threw a lot of strikes.
Still 0-2 to Beltre. Boy, Gibson really wearing out the inside part of the strike zone to Adrian. Now he wants Kurt Suzuki to come out for a little chat.
Adrian hardly ever strikes out. Once every 10.5 plate appearances. That last pitch, pretty good example of why he doesn't strike out very much. That sinker was down and in, and maybe 6 inches inside, a couple inches low, and he still got a piece of it and fouled it off. You want to get a good look at it here. How far inside and low that is. Actually, it wasn't low. It was right at the bottom of the strike zone. It was just way inside.
Got him swinging. Looked like he pulled the string. And Beltre is gone. That is out number 2. And before Mitch Moreland steps in, we're going to send it back to John Radigan for a Mazda game break. All right, John, thank you. The Blue Jays are going to lose till they get to Arlington.
With some teams, you hear someone hit a home run, and you can kind of think of 2 or 3 guys that it probably was. With the Blue Jays, you don't have the slightest idea who it was. There's so many of them.
You know, we said when the Rangers played in Toronto, middle of the year, July, that the Blue Jays really had a pretty good lineup, but they just hadn't lived up to their potential. They're living up to their potential now.
Yeah, and even back then they were among the leaders in runs scored.
Right.
They're definitely the leader now.
Fastball inside to Moreland. 1 ball and 1 strike to Mitch. Moreland went down swinging his first time up there. Got an opportunity to add on to the Ranger lead. Rangers currently leading 2-0. Have DeShields at second and Fielder at first. Moreland second on the Ranger club with 57 runs driven in. 2-1. Mitch, in these situations, runners in scoring position, been one of the hottest Rangers. And this goes back to the middle of the early part of June. He has gone 18 for 49. That's a 367 average. Taps it foul, and the count evens at 2 balls, 2 strikes. Mitch came in with a 294 average. It's good for 16th in the American League batting race. 4-game hitting streak, as we mentioned, a 7 for 14 4-game streak. Now the 2-2 coming. 3-2.
He's coming close on all those fastballs that he's trying to get into the left-hand hitters. He's not getting the call, and a couple of times he's just missing. He's definitely making the hitters aware of that pitch, which probably affects how they swing at his other pitches.
So with 2 outs now, both Delino DeShields and Prince Fielder will have a running start. Kyle Gibson sets at the belt. Payoff pitch on the way. Got him swinging. Gibson ends up striking out the side in between a couple of base hits. Rangers strand 2. After 2.5, it remains the Rangers 2 and the Twins nothing. Come on out to Globe Life Park. Watch the Rangers play the Mariners and get your kids geared up for school. Tickets are available at TexasRangers.com. Now the Twins to bat, and leading things off here in the third is the number 9 man, Eduardo Escobar, the shortstop. Switch hitter up there from the left side. Fouling off that first pitch. Escobar, a .241 average with 4 home runs and 32 driven in. Gallardo just missed that pitch a little bit low. Escobar with very good speed at the bottom of that Twins order. Up the middle, snared by Gallardo, and Giovanni. Little flip on to Moreland for out number 1.
Yeah, good changeup right there. Looked just like his sinker. And he's thrown a lot of sinkers. And this one, looking just like one, caused Escobar to hit it right off the end of the bat. Softly back to the pitcher's mound.
That's the kind of comebackers a pitcher likes.
Yeah, right on your glove side, one hop.
Nice little soft one hopper. Well, 1 gone. Now back to the top of the Minnesota order. And Aaron Hicks up for his second at bat. Takes ball 1. Hicks had a ground ball up the middle, but Elvis Andrus cut it off and threw him out. Two balls, no strikes. Hicks, one of those switch hitters that is more dominant from one side as opposed to the other. As a right-handed hitter, he is a .368 average. Left-handed, just .245. That was one of the things last year that gave him pause to consider whether he wanted to continue switch hitting or not. Gave up the left side for a while, but the Twins really encouraged him in the offseason to stay with it. And it has come back around for him. 3-0 pitch on the outside corner. Hicks overall a pretty good on-base percentage, .342 coming into play tonight. Lines one, Odor up on his tiptoes to make the catch. 2 gone.
It's one of those, as an infielder, it's got a little bit of topspin on it. You're ready to jump. Turns out you don't have to jump quite as high as you thought when you start your jump. Get off the ground just in case, so you don't jump too late. You can always put your glove down lower.
Now 2 away. Now 6 straight retired by Gallardo. Here's Brian Dozier, also grounded out to short in the first inning. Takes that cut fastball outside for ball 1. Dozier at .247, 58 runs driven in. Awfully good production for a guy who plays second base and spent most of the time leading off this year.
Dozier pinch hit in the All-Star game and hit a home run.
This one's popped up. It'll stay in play. Mitch Moreland right behind the coach's box waiting for it to come down. Puts it away, and that'll do it. Another 1-2-3 inning for Gallardo. Twins gone in order. We have finished 3 in Minneapolis. 2-0 Rangers. West Airlines. Book your low fare now at southwest.com. And by Mazda. In every car we make, you'll see why driving matters. Beautiful shot of the skyline downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota. Gorgeous evening, temperature in the mid to upper 70s. Very gentle breeze out of the north. And Josh Hamilton stirred up that breeze with a swing and a miss. Hamilton had a base hit to right field his first time up. So Josh now at 256 with the average. Be Hamilton, Andrews, and Odor, first three Rangers here in the fourth inning. Kyle Gibson back to the plate. 1 ball and 1 strike. Josh now 5 out of 14 on this road trip. See the last 4 ball games. Josh at 353. Little tapper, going to be a tough play. Gibson off balance throw and just did get it. That is a very athletic play by a guy that's 6'6".
Yeah, when that ball went down to the ground, it didn't look like a pitcher would be able to make the play, especially one as tall as he is. But he gets over there quickly. He's in decent position to field after he threw the ball, and then looked more like a third baseman right here when he caught it and fired it over to first base. Very nice play.
Well, Gibson helping his own cause with some pretty good fielding work. 1 out. Here's Elvis. The difference in the ball game tonight. That is 5th home run of the year with Hamilton aboard last time up. On the outside corner for strike 1. Well, Elvis now up over 40 RBI. Has 41 driven in, 5 home runs. Batting mark of 257.
When Elvis first got to the big leagues, people tried to compare him to other shortstops, who he might be like. And the one name that you heard a lot of people who knew him say was Edgar Renteria. Renteria got to the big leagues when he was about 19 as well. And his first several years in the big leagues, he hit 3 or 4 or 5 home runs. And like we were saying, Buzz, he never developed into a power hitter, but he developed into a guy that occasionally could hit double-digit home runs, 10, 11, 12 home runs, and did that. And instead of knocking in 40 or 50 runs, he would knock in 65 to 75 runs. And so if that was the guy that Elvis was compared to, got to the big leagues at about the same time, hopefully that's the kind of guy he's developing into.
Yeah.
Not a guy who's going to hit 20 home runs, but if you go from 4 to 10 or 11 or 12, that's a pretty nice improvement.
Jam shot up the middle. Dozier thrown across his body, and Howard can't dig it out.
Well, there's a difference between Mitch Moreland and other first basemen.
Exactly.
Mitch picks that ball probably 90% of the time and saves the infielder an error. Joe Mauer didn't pick it that time. I don't know whether it's an error or a base hit, but it's a ball that bounced and probably should have been picked. Could have been picked. Let's put it that way. I won't say should, but could have been picked. And Mitch has already picked one just like it.
Yeah, that's going to be a base hit for Elvis. So he's 2 for 2. Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Tom. That's invaluable to have a guy over there at first base that has a good glove like Mitch does.
Yep.
So 1 on, 1 out. Here's Rougned Odor. Rougned grounded out to second base in the second inning. And he takes a knee-high strike, 0-1. Odor brings in an 8-game hitting streak. Those 8 ball games. Odor almost a 500 hitter, 16 for 34. That's a 471 mark. He's gone 7 for 12 on this road trip. 1-1.
Just taking a quick look at Edgar Renteria. And the other thing he did a couple of times was hit 40 doubles. I mentioned that Elvis could become that kind of a guy to hit 40 doubles. And probably frequently was well above 30 and 35, 37, right around there. That's perfectly within Elvis's capabilities.
And his keystone combination mate, Rougned Odor. You saw our Ford leaderboard comparisons against Odor's against the second baseman around the American League. Rougned with the average since the All-Star break, second among second basemen. Home runs, he's tied for third. RBI tied for second. And he's first in slugging percentage. 2-1. That evens the count. Yeah, and Renteria, for a number of years, was really one of the sought-after pieces by good clubs that needed just that one extra.
Yeah.
And the Giants picking him up that one year. They needed the one key guy in their infield. He was
in his career. That's exactly what he was.
2-2 pitch to Odor. Now the count fills. Now with one out, we'll see if Elvis Andrus takes off with the next pitch. 3-2 to Rougned. Chris Jimenez waiting in the on-deck circle to follow Odor. Gibson sets. Elvis on the move. Payoff pitch fouled back. We'll reset and try it again. The Rangers haven't used the stolen base as a weapon as much as they did a little bit earlier in the year. They're still fourth in the American League with 66 stolen bases. Jeff Bannister's not had his base runners in situations where they could prudently run as often of late. Been hitting the ball so well, you didn't want to slow a rally down by taking a chance of having somebody thrown out. Elvis, of course, the all-time Ranger leader in stolen bases. Stepping off a fairly good-sized lead at first. He's going again. 3-2 pitch, and again it's fouled off to the left. Odor expanding his strike zone just a little bit, protecting home plate. There's that 8-game hitting streak we were talking about. Not only the high average, but also he's driven in 5 runs in those 8 games. Getting it all done. And I think that one statistic that kind of amazed you since the All-Star break, best slugging percentage of all the Rangers, 636. Again, Elvis on the move, and another pop-up foul. We'll see if that reaches the seats. Plouffe going over on the run, can't get there. It bounds once and then back into the seats. Trevor Plouffe getting in his wind sprints. That's about the only spot in target field where that ball could have fallen in, where the third baseman couldn't get to it or the outfielder couldn't get to it. Not a lot of foul territory here. Again, Gibson reading the signs, and, trying to get Kurt Suzuki to recycle them one time. 9th pitch of the at-bat coming up to Rougned Odor. Elvis going, and a line drive toward the gap in left center. On the run, into the alley goes Rosario to make the catch. Trying to throw back to first, he does. Elvis able to get back in time. That's a pretty good arm by Eddie Rosario, throwing it going the wrong way towards center field back to first, and he overshot it.
Well, he gave it a shot. It's kind of a shot in the dark, whether you can throw it accurately enough. He knows he's got the arm to get it there. Well, he just launches it. And if he got lucky and that ball landed right on first base, he would have had him at first base.
Sure would have.
Would have had a highlight reel play. Pretty hard, though, to throw it accurately to a guy standing still on first base that far away, moving in that direction like that.
Bill Ellis back at first with 2 outs now. Chris Jimenez stands in against Kyle Gibson. Jimenez a strikeout his first time up. 1 ball, no strikes. We've talked about it. We talked about it a lot in the series in Seattle. Jimenez and Bobby Wilson, what a job they have done as a tandem behind the plate for the Rangers. Both of them 4-game hitting streaks. Driving in runs. Here's Bobby. Jimenez 6 for 14 in his 4-game streak. Now 2-0. Go back to the 31st of July when they were added to the Ranger roster. And since then, they have combined to hit .414 with a home run, 6 doubles, and 10 RBI in 9 games. To right field, retreating to his right, Torrey Hunter. And that will do it. Rangers get a hit from Elvis Andrus, but stranded. We finished 3.5 in Minneapolis. The Rangers 2 and the Twins nothing. Fans 14 and older will get a Yovani Gallardo powder blue t-shirt. That's thanks to Dr. Pepper, Albertsons, and Top Thumb. Visit TexasRangers.com or you can call 972-RANGERS to secure your tickets. Yovani set to go to work here in the bottom of the 4th inning. Joe Mauer to lead things off. Mauer 1 for 1, had a single with 2 outs in the 1st inning. And Yovani breaks out that slow curveball that's in for strike 1. It'll be Mauer, Sano, and Plouffe for the Twins. Rangers leading 2-0. They have out hit Minnesota by a 6-1 count. 1 ball and 1 strike. Mauer now 7 out of 13 in his career against Yovani Gallardo. Couldn't quite get on top of that high fastball. It's 1-2. Yovani has 7 starts against the Minnesota Twins in his career. Obviously, all of them with Milwaukee. Just missed outside. Career-wise, he is 2-2 with a .352 earned run average against them. But he has held the Twins to a .238 team batting average coming into play tonight. The 2-2 pitch. Try it again as Mauer shoots it out of play to the left.
Mauer's big year, and it was well timed, was 2009 when he hit .365, hit 28 home runs. The only time he's hit more than 15 home runs really in a year was that year, and drove in 96 runs. The only time he's ever driven in more than 85 runs.
He rolls over on this one, a nice 2-hopper out to Odor. That is out number 1. Miguel Sano will come up. Folks, Fox Sports Southwest would like to welcome Cole Hamels to Texas. Celebration. Get 2 Lexus Club Terrace or upper box tickets to any game in August, excluding August 15th, for only $35. Just log on to TexasRangers.com. Use the coupon code HAMILS and get your tickets today. In case you hadn't heard the news, Cole pushed back from his start that was scheduled for this Thursday. He will now pitch at home in his regularly scheduled next starting assignment. Sano drew a walk his first time up there. Big man, a .264 average. Beltre across the diamond. There are two gone. There's 9 straight now sent down by Gallardo and the Rangers.
It really seems, Buzz, after he came out after the first inning, that it has been on his mind, what you mentioned earlier, to work quickly, but also to pound the strike zone. He got a little bit too careful, it looked like, in the first inning. Got ahead of Mauer, worked the count, got a base hit. Then he walked Sano, threw a few pitches to Trevor Plouffe. But then when he came back out in the second inning, since that time, been a lot more strikes. Pitch count looks a lot better. So that's good to see.
Yeah, it is. Mike Maddox has known Giovanni since Giovanni came up to the big leagues with Milwaukee. Mike has an understandable affection for the way Giovanni goes about working. Inning by inning, you can see that first inning was not what Giovanni wanted at 27 pitches, but since then, as Tom told you, much more economical and effective. He's retired 9 straight. Misses low and outside. It's 2-1 down to Plouffe. Plouffe had a ground ball to short, ending the Twins' first inning.
Yeah, the Rangers need Giovanni to pitch 6 innings and many times at least into the 7th inning.
The ball's hit well to right center field, but Chu and Delino to Shields over there. Shin-Soo Choo makes the call on the catch. That will do it. Another 1-2-3 inning. That is 10 straight now, set down by Gallardo. We have finished 4. Rangers by 2.
The 5th, and General Manager John Daniels on this trip, and I asked him about watching the standings, just how much he's doing that these days.
As much as all of our fans, every day, and it's fun too, because you've got all the wild card teams. You're literally watching half the games impact us some way, shape, or form. I'm still of the mindset, though, I think our best opportunity is to win the division. I think that's where our heads have to be, and especially with as many games against Houston and Anaheim that we have left, you control your own destiny. And I think we're a talented enough group to get it done.
So the Rangers start the day 3.5 out of that wild card, or one of those wild cards, and 4.5 out of first place in the American League West. As JD mentioned, still plenty of time to be making up that ground in the standings. And I asked him, too, about if it's more beneficial to be the hunter or the hunted. And he said, really, whatever position we're in, I'll take that one and make it the best position possible. So right now, being the hunter, the Rangers are enjoying. But I'm sure they would take the hunted as well, guys.
Okay, and thank you. Yeah, good points. It's interesting to have that
I think in most cases I'd like to be the hunter until it comes to the standings. And then I'd like to be the hunted.
Delano to Shields. Not able to make contact with that Kyle Gibson offering. One gone. Delano retired for the first time tonight. Gibson now with 6 strikeouts.
Yeah, he's not a huge strikeout guy, but he's making some good pitches tonight. Watch this ball from here on in. Go straight down. Delano swung right over the top of it. He's got a really good sinker. And the one pitch that hurt him today wasn't a sinker. It was a hanging slider, it looked like, to Elvis, that he threw right down the middle of the plate. I think, generally speaking, you'd think if you're going to throw a hanging slider, Elvis would be one of the guys in the lineup that you might get away with it. But that wasn't the case that time. Elvis hit it into the left field seats.
Yeah, maybe before 3 or 4 weeks ago, you might have.
Might have.
But, yeah, I think as soon as Gibson released that ball, you could hear it yell, hit me, all the way to
He was hoping it sank and hit the top of the wall.
0-1 to Shin-Soo Choo. Choo has walked and struck out. 1-1 the count. Shin-Soo at 238 as he faces Gibson. Base is empty. 1 gone here in the top of the 5th. Pitch we haven't seen the right-hander unveil until just then tonight. That slow curveball. Gibson to the line. The 1-2. That evens things up. Choo now 2 out of 9 on the trip. He scored a couple of runs. Again, he has the second highest average on the Ranger club since the All-Star break. Dozier on to Mount for 2 gone. So Choo 0 for 2 as he heads back to the Ranger dugout. Now Prince Fielder will come up. Prince got sawed off pretty well last time up, but as strong as he is, he was able to muscle it into center field for a base hit. We've seen him have maybe a handful of hits like that this year where he really got jammed, but shows you how strong he is. Able to get it out to the outfield for a safety. Not many other guys around that strong.
This guy that I'm thinking of is not quite that strong, but he sure did it more often. I hate to bring it up again. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
A.J. Pierzynski. He's one of the most amazing hitters I've ever seen. Some of the pitches that he hit for base hits. You know, as of last week, he was hitting 300 for the Braves, too. Another good season, boy. Just keeps on going.
That's way outside, and the count goes to 3-0.
That ball was at least 6 or 8 inches inside.
That was one Delano headed back to first base. He got faked out by Brian Dozier, the second baseman.
Sure did.
A base hit the other way, and Prince Fielder with another multiple hit game at his 45 now this season. And depending on what Ian Kinsler does with the Tigers, Fielder will either still be tied or be in front in multiple hit games.
And more often than not this year is what he's done with a tailing fastball on the outside corner. Let's go the other way with it. I think teams at the start of the year wanted to play their shortstop on the other side of second base, and as the years has gone on, the evidence just contradicts what they thought was the right way to play him.
Yep. Here's Beltre. He shoots that foul down the right side. Adrian has grounded into a double play and struck out. 0 for 2 tonight, currently hitting at .259. Rangers with 7 hits now. As Prince Fielder looks like he had something in his eyeball. Everything's all right now, and Beltre waiting for Gibson to get the sign. On the inside corner. Well, Gibson has really worn out the inside part of the strike zone to Adrian tonight. He just steadily stayed there. I think the pitch that Beltre grounded into the double play came after 3 or 4 fastballs that were inside. Now the 0-2 coming. Another one in there. Well, a guy that has a good sinker like Gibson does, very few hitters are going to be able to do much with that pitch if they do swing at it. Pitch down and into a right-hander. It's moving that way.
Pretty hard to hit it in the air, that's for sure.
I would think it's pretty tough to keep fair for most guys.
Yeah.
Tried it again, missed low and inside. 1-2. Talking about Beltre having a little rough stretch here. You go back over the last 26 games, he's hit over 300, 301 to be exact. Pulls it on the ground to short. The short way to Dozier for the force. Rangers get a hit, stranded runner. We've played half the game here at Target Field in Minneapolis. It's the Rangers 2 and the Twins nothing. Everyone would like to tell you about the pitching matchup. Nick Martinez takes his 7-6 record out against the Twins. Mike Pelfrey will be his mound opponent. Pelfrey at 5-7 with a 4.06. Back here at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Middle game of this 3-game series. Rangers trying to get off on the right foot in this opener. They lead 2-0. Torrey Hunter leading off the bottom of the 5th inning for the Twins. High fly ball to right. Jew couldn't find it for a second, but now he does. A little bit of twilight still here at Target Field. 1 out. Eddie Rosario coming up. Let's send it back to John Radigan, who has a Mazda game break for us. Wow, thank you, John. I'm jealous. That's some quick baseball.
I think if you, well, there's probably a couple of teams you could pick that you didn't think were going to be in a race this late in the season, but I think Tampa Bay would have been one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Credit to their organization. Here they are, game over 500 right now.
They had as many changes probably in the last year or so of anybody. They're really playing well. Eddie Rosario takes outside, and the count is even at a ball and a strike. Rosario struck out the first time that he faced Giovanni Gallardo. Rosario, another one of those young outfielders that the Twins have that they're counting on as the basis of their future. Rosario and Aaron Hicks, also Byron Buxton, who apparently will come back up at least for the 1st of September. The Twins sent him down after he came off the disabled list to get some more work in, get his timing back. The 1-2 pitch. Slapped the other way. Elvis a jump throw, and he can't get enough on it. Rosario gets down that line pretty well, and Elvis, something didn't time out correctly for him. He didn't get as much on that throw as we've seen before.
Yeah, he knew he had a fast runner, and he knew he didn't have time to take his time and jump and throw. He was trying to do it all as quickly as he could. And it didn't matter how he did it. He wasn't going to get Rosario.
That might have been one of those balls that Mark McLemore talks about getting a palm ball and trying to throw it. The ball didn't come out.
Didn't come out right. Could have been.
Well, that snaps a string of 11 straight retired by Gallardo. 1 on, 1 out. Kurt Suzuki, who popped out to short, will now step to the plate. Suzuki hitting 8th in the order. Slow that play down for you a little bit. Here's the transfer to the glove.
Yeah, it looked like he had it in his fingertips.
Knuckleball?
Yeah. Definitely didn't get a good grip on it. You don't have time to move the ball around to get a grip. You have to hope when you reach down to get it, you've got a grip.
Oh, they had Rosario leaning the wrong way. And Giovanni couldn't quite get the ball there quickly enough. See Rosario take that false step towards second. He was picked, but Giovanni couldn't get the ball to Moreland in time. Yeah, got him again. And this time he doesn't get back there. Well, Rosario said, I didn't believe it the first time. Now I believe it.
Yeah, he must have said to himself, okay, there's his pickoff attempt. He's not going to try it again. I'll get a good jump and go this time. And Giovanni said just the opposite. I almost had you the first time. I'll get you this time.
And Paul Molitor, who had more than 3,000 hits and 500 stolen bases in his Hall of Fame career, that may be a look of disbelief on his face.
I mean, once you see the guy, he's got a decent move. He's keeping you close. You have to be careful.
Yeah.
He looked at it just the opposite. All right, there's your one shot at me. The first time he had a little head movement and shoulder movement towards second base. That time his whole body moved, and it was more difficult for him to change direction and get back to first base. Didn't have a chance.
Admits the easy tag down there that time. So base is empty, 2 away. The 1-1 pitch to Suzuki on the outside corner.
Suzuki didn't like a call the first time up either on a pitch out there. Pitch the first time up was in that same area of being outside or on the corner, but it was even lower than that.
2 balls and 2 strikes. Giovanni, a total of 75 pitches tonight. The strike to ball ratio getting a little bit better. 41 strikes, 34 balls. Still not where Giovanni would like it, but getting there. Into the wind he goes to the 2-2 pitch. Almost took his belt buckle off. 3-2.
Well, the Ranger bullpen has added Keone Kela. Man, they've got some guys now from the 6th inning on that are a lot like some of those bullpens we've talked about with other teams that have a chock full of guys throwing 94 to 98 miles an hour.
Line drive, foul off the bat of Suzuki.
And you go Kella, Dyson, even Sam Freeman, for the most part, has been throwing 93 to 96. Diekman, 96, 97. Serve those middle innings as the setup relievers to Sean Tollison. Bullpen is really solid right now.
Yeah, of the 5 guys down there at the tail end of the ball game, Tollison's the only one that doesn't throw 98.
Yeah.
Another foul ball back.
And Anthony Bass has been solid for the Rangers in a lot of different roles, but right now as a long man, you love him in that role. And Spencer Patton has had some ups and downs, but recently, after he went in and told the skipper, hey, look, I'm better than the way I'm throwing, stick with me. Since that point in time, he's been very solid too.
Yeah, not only did he say it, he did it.
He did it. Came out and did it.
That's right.
Yeah, you can buy yourself a little time if the manager buys what you're saying, but eventually you got to go out there and get people out.
And ball 4 is Suzuki going to lean on that cut fastball from Giovanni. Second walk issued by Gallardo. A 2-out pass puts Suzuki aboard and brings up Eduardo Escobar. Escobar tapped right back to the mound his first time up. Escobar up there from the left side. Switch hitter is better left-handed than right-handed. He's 264 as a left-handed hitter, 200 from the right side of the plate. 1 ball, no strikes. Gallardo, that was his 80th pitch of the night. Very comfortable evening, not hot by any means. Giovanni probably will have plenty left in the tank. While we have a moment here, we'd like to show you tonight's Kubota Power Stats. How about Johnny Cueto last night? Against the Tigers for Kansas City, his first home start at Kauffman Stadium. His 6th complete game shutout of his career as he blanked the Tigers on 4 hits, I believe it was. That's a pretty good first impression for Cueto. Pitch in at the knees to Escobar for strike 1. Suzuki, the runner at first. Rangers leading it 2-0. They have out hit the Twins 7-2 tonight. Out of play. And Gallardo with the advantage of the count now at a ball and 2 strikes. Kind of like to see Giovanni get out of this inning and get the Rangers through the 6th inning.
Yeah, if you have a quick at bat, you get the pickoff. If you get Suzuki quickly, and then go up and have 2 more good innings, you get through 7.
Yeah.
But I guess, you know, the way it's been going for Giovanni, he's only thrown 6 innings in one of his last 7 starts. So I guess you have to start with 6. But I think the Rangers and Giovanni would like to be the kind of guy that when he takes the ball, it's automatic that he's going to give you 6 innings, and hopefully he's going to go a little farther than that. You're not hoping for 6 innings as the ceiling every time he goes out there.
Out of play. Still 2-2. Mike Maddox. Jeff Bannister keeping an eye on things. The last time Gallardo went more than 6 innings, back on the 27th of June, he went 8 1/3 against the Blue Jays. Since then, only twice has he gone 6. Every other time is less than that. Odor on to Andrews covering second, and that will do it. No runs, a hit. 1 man left for the Twins. We'll move on to the 6th inning. It's the Rangers 2, the Twins nothing. But Sonic Drive-In. If a Ranger hits a home run during this inning, Pat Youngblood from Copper Canyon, Texas, will win $700. And if a Ranger hits a grand slam this inning, Pat is going to take home $25,000. You can register at any participating Sonic restaurant. Pat, hang on here a second. We've got Mitch Moreland, Josh Hamilton, and Elvis Andrus coming up. You got a pretty legitimate shot at winning our Sonic Slam. Mitch Moreland struck out both times that he has faced Kyle Gibson here tonight. Gibson with 6 strikeouts through the first 5 innings. Misses outside for ball 1. Mitch with the 0 for 2 now, batting at .292. Pretty good rip of that pitch that stayed up but fouled it off. A ball and a strike. Moreland now 1 for 5 in his career against Gibson. That ball's hit well to left field. Going to his left, Rosario. He's able to track it down.
He caught that right in the top of his glove. You know, so it went right by him. That was a shot that was hit at him. Went a little farther than I think he thought it was going to go.
Made it look pretty casual, but I'm with you. I don't think he thought that was going to take off the way it did.
That's when you wish Mitch got that one up in the air a little bit.
One hard out. Here's Josh Hamilton, who is 1 for 2. It's the slow breaking ball for strike 1. Hamilton singled and scored. Scored on the Elvis Andrus home run back in the 2nd inning. Out on a fine play by Kyle Gibson. A little tapper out in front of the plate last time. Kyle Gibson now approaching the 100 pitch level. And, as a result, there's some action going out in the Twins bullpen. Josh, a .254 average. Got the changeup and missed it. Hit 1 and 2. Laid off that changeup. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Casey Fiend, the right-hander, loosening in the Minnesota bullpen. That is low. 3 balls and 2 strikes. Well, Hamilton trying to get aboard with 1 out. Elvis Andrus is waiting. Elvis, the supplier of both Ranger runs tonight on that 2-run home run. Payoff pitch coming to Hamilton. Lost him. Josh takes the walk. And with Elvis coming up, how about our AT&T Uverse Rewind? We go back to the 2nd inning with Hamilton aboard. A hanging slider that screamed, "Hit me," all the way to home plate, and Elvis obliged. His 5th home run of the year, a line shot that got into the bushes out there above the left field wall. 2-run blast. That has been the sum total of the scoring here tonight for either club. Elvis last time up had an infield single, so 2 for 2 on the Ranger shortstop. Nothing in 1. Elvis now with at least 1 hit in each of his last 3 ball games. Back over the last month, he has put in a lot of good work. Pops this one up into shallow right field. Dozier backing out. Coming on is Torrey Hunter, makes the call on the catch. Out number 2. So Elvis retired for the first time tonight. 2 gone. Rougned Odor will be next. Odor has flied to left and grounded to 2nd. 0 for 2. Remind you that 8-game hitting streak, a career high for Rougned. On the line here tonight. An 8-gamer, the 4th longest active streak in the American League. 0-1 on the foul ball. Brugnet, since coming back for the second time, the 15th of June, added 137 points to his batting average.
Almost doubled it.
Yeah. 144 to 281. That's a whole bunch of work with the number of at-bats he had. Gibson ready. The 0-2 pitch is coming. Hamilton at first. A 1-out walk put Josh aboard. Elvis popped out to right. And now Odor facing Gibson. A count of 1 ball and 2 strikes. Gibson sets. And calls strike 3. A comeback fastball. And Odor turned into a statue by that pitch. No runs, no hits. The Walker left stranded after 5.5. Rangers 2, Twins nothing. Photo of the night. And this one comes to us from David. Thank you, David. We appreciate that. If you all would like to send in your photos, use hashtag Southwest Data StrongFan. Your photo might be selected to be aired during an upcoming broadcast like David's was tonight. It's all brought to you by the good folks at T-Mobile. Giovanni Gallardo going to work in the bottom of the 6th inning.
Saw everybody in the kiss cam.
Yeah.
Wants to get in on the action.
Nothing better in a ballpark to make memories. Aaron Hicks 0 for 2 tonight. Pops up the next pitch. That will reach the seats over the Ranger third base dugout. 2 balls and a strike.
Those 2 little girls were walking down the aisle. They almost got more than they bargained for.
Hicks a 282 average as he stands at the plate, leading off the bottom of the 6th. Rangers leading 2-0. Giovanni Gallardo misses a little bit low, and it's 3-1. Gallardo has walked 2 tonight. Walked 1 in the first inning and 1 in the 5th inning. He's only allowed 2 base hits. In between the hits and the walks, retired 11 straight. The 3-1 to Hicks. Full count. Fox tracker showing him number 5 there, right at the bottom of the strike zone. Gallardo reading the signs from Jimenez. Payoff pitch to center field. Gallardo to Shields to his left, able to make the catch on that hard hit ball by Aaron. That's the hardest ball that a Twins hitter has hit tonight.
He hit that ball as well as he can hit a line drive.
Folks, want to remind you that fans attending the game on Friday, August 14th against the Tampa Bay Rays will enjoy a special post-game fireworks show set to Star Wars music. That's sponsored by Takis. There will also be special appearances by Star Wars characters out on the concourse. Visit TexasRangers.com. Use the coupon code FIREWORKS for $14 upper reserve tickets. A 1 out. Here is Brian Dozier, who is grounded out and popped out. Beltre from down under throws him out. Adrian Beltre does that better than anybody in baseball.
Yeah, if you give him a chance, he's going to get you. Unless it's a perfect bunt. That bunt was a decent bunt, but he bunted a little bit too hard. And even though Adrian's back in back of the bag, you're right, Buzz. If he gets a ball that far back, you don't have much of a chance. Got to deaden it more than that. Still don't know how he gets as much on the ball as he does.
No, I don't have any idea either. The ball just like a sink. Whip. The ball doesn't sink. No. You would think, most people throw the ball down there, it's going to dive like it's a wounded duck, but not Adrian. No, 2 outs, and Joe Mauer, who is 1 for 2, steps in. Mauer single to right field back in the first inning. Last time up, grounded to second. Giovanni Gallardo getting ready to throw his 94th pitch of the night. And it is a bit low. 2 balls and no strikes. Giovanni, the 29-year-old Fort Worth Trimble Tech high school product. On the outside corner. 2-1. Sam Dyson, hard throwing a right-hander, loosening in that Ranger bullpen. Gallardo to the wind, the 2-1. 3 balls and a strike. Mauer bidding to get on in this inning, and Giovanni being pretty stingy letting people on. He's retired 14 of the last 16 that he's faced. The 3-1 pitch. That will fill the count. If Mauer extends this inning, Miguel Sano, big powerful DH, is in the on-deck circle. Get Mauer right here, so you make Sano lead off an inning where he can't be the tying run.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Giovanni ready to go to work. Payoff pitch. We'll have to try it again. Joe Mauer back in the batter's box, taps that plate once. Giovanni Gallardo reading the signs from Chris Jimenez. Another 3-2 pitch coming. We're going to have to use at least 8 pitches to have this come to an end. And that 8th pitch in this at bat will be number 100 on the evening for Yovani Gallardo. Lost him. Pitch off the plate inside. Mauer works a 2-out walk. And Jeff Bannister making his move up to the top step on his way out of the Ranger dugout. Is taking a purposeful walk, crossing the white line out to the mound, and he has made the motion to the bullpen. He wants Sam Dyson to come in to face Miguel Sano. So Yovani Gallardo goes 5 2/3 tonight. He leaves having shut out the Twins on a couple of hits with 3 walks. He has property at first base, his responsibility. Sam Dyson coming on. And while he makes his way in, we will take a timeout. We're back to Target Field right after this. For the Rangers. Tuesday night here in Minnesota. Tomorrow night, also here, and then Thursday afternoon. Then it's back home. Weekend series against Tampa Bay. Seattle comes in for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday the following week. Then the Rangers make a quick 4-game trip to Detroit before coming back home to finish out the month against Toronto and Baltimore. Now, Yovani Gallardo, 5 2/3 innings. He is now in the Ranger dugout, and he is given way to Sam Dyson, hard throwing right-hander. Dyson out of the University of South Carolina. Miguel Sano takes a strike in at the knees.
All those balls in warm-ups.
Sano has walked and grounded to third here this evening. Dyson making his 6th appearance. ERA with the Rangers at 193. Dyson a check of Mauer at first base.
There's a sinker. Gibson was throwing the same sinker at about 92 miles an hour. Dyson's throwing it at 97 miles an hour.
Watch the bottom fall out of this thing.
You start that around the knees, you can swing any way you want. There's not much you're going to do with that pitch. Sometimes you hope you don't make contact. The ball knock the bat out of your hand.
Yep. Now the 1-2 coming. Line to right. Q going over to play it on a bounce. Now we're around second. We'll motor into third. And Sano waited till he got one up in the strike zone a little bit and took it the other way.
Yeah, he didn't get a sinker. That was either a cutter or a slider. Maybe a cut fastball. And it's, not a terrible pitch. It's up, though, even though it's a little bit outside. I don't know how you can go wrong throwing 97-mile-an-hour sinkers. Not that that's a bad pitch. pitch you can't get a hitter out with, but man, when your bread and butter is 97 miles an hour down around the knees and making it sink, pound them with it.
Sometimes we just want to go for the less simple answer.
Yeah. There's other ways of doing it, and not that that's not a good pitch, and not that you don't ever need it, but
Trevor Plouffe takes a strike.
After that 97 mile an hour sinker that he swung and missed at, I wouldn't feel like I had to do anything other than that.
Yeah.
And I guess if I was a hitter, the pitcher wouldn't. He might not waste some other kind of pitch, but maybe with Sano, you feel like you have to mix him up a little bit. Big guy like that with all that power.
It's just outside. A ball and a strike. Plouffe tonight is grounded to short, flying to right. For 2, and currently hitting at 247. He has Joe Mauer at third base. Miguel Sano across the diamond at first. Sano carrying the tying run in this ball game. 1-1 pitch coming. That may be about the best that Trevor Plouffe can do with that. Chris Jimenez flashing the signs out. Dyson reading them. Sam ready. Checking the runners. The 1-2 pitch. Sam Dyson keeps throwing that to Trevor Plouffe. There's not going to be a worm alive in target field. Beat all of them.
Think there's any worms down there?
Pretty sure there are.
I think you might have to dig a ways to find them.
Another 1-2 from Dyson. Elvis to Odor. They get the sliding Sano. That'll do it. So Dyson gets the final out after giving up a hit. The Twins strand a pair. We're going to the 7th, 2-0 Rangers. Got all the offense for the Rangers. A 2-run home run in the 2nd inning. His 5th of the year. Josh Hamilton was aboard, and Giovanni Gallardo has made it stand up. Gallardo, 5 2/3 innings, and he had the Twins eating out of his hand tonight. At one point, retired 11 straight and 14 out of 16. Gallardo, 5 2/3 shutout baseball, just 2 hits, 3 walks, and 1 strikeout. So we go to the 7th inning. Kyle Gibson is finished. Casey Fiend has come on to take over for the Twins.
I guess looking at those numbers, Buzz, one thing you say, he's probably not going to walk anybody.
Right. Yeah. Good chance that he doesn't. Being one of the mainstays the last several years for the Minnesota Twins. He deals a breaking ball in for strike one to Chris Jimenez. Being a 31-year-old out of Southern California. And Jimenez pops it up on the infield. Plouffe coming down the line from third makes the catch. That is out number one. The Rangers now back to the top of their order for Delino to Shields. Casey Fiend, a lot of cut fastballs, and doesn't really throw any other kind of breaking ball. He considers that almost a slider. Throwing back, mixing a four-seamer and change speeds a little bit, but he's pretty basic. Comes at you. Popped up, and Suzuki able to get the mask off and capture that pop-up on the bunt attempt from Delino to Shields for out number two. No, Delino trying to break out the bunt for a base hit. That's pretty quick reactions by Suzuki, be able to not only get the mask off and get over there, but to locate the ball that quickly. And Paul Molitor out, and that's going to do it for Casey Fiend. So they just wanted him to have the two right-handers. He got Jimenez and DeShields on pop-ups. That's all that Fiend is going to be asked to face here tonight. No, another pitching change underway here at Target Field in Minnesota. We'll be back right after this on Fox Sports Southwest. The first 7,500 kids 13 and under will receive a Shin-Soo Choo blue batting helmet. That's sponsored by Dairy Queen. Head on over to TexasRangers.com or call 972-RANGERS to get your tickets. And speaking of Shin-Soo Choo, he will be the first to face the new pitcher on the hill for the Twins. That is 27-year-old left-hander Ryan O'Rourke. O'Rourke in his 16th game for Minnesota this year. Opponents hitting just 122 against him. Deals strike one. O'Rourke, fastball slider, mix in a changeup occasionally. 0-2 to Jew. Jitsu tonight 0 for 2. Drew a walk back in the first inning. Since then has struck out and grounded to second. And now with 2 strikes, the Twins go into the extreme overshift. 3 players on the right side of the diamond. See, the third baseman Plouffe has taken the middle position there right next to second base. Dozier, the second baseman, in between Plouffe and Joe Mauer. 2 balls, 2 strikes. O'Rourke nods in agreement. And Chu trying to take that ball the other way and maybe beat the shift, but fouled it off. And Chu very definitely has the ability to take that ball the other way and beat an alignment like this. Keep making fastball pitches out there, and he's going to too. O'Rourke sets once again. And the breaking ball is wide. So Chu has gone from 0-2 to 3-2, trying to extend this 7th inning if he gets aboard Prince Fielder. Ranger DH. Loosening. Payoff pitch coming from O'Rourke. Hung that one just high enough that Chu couldn't get on top of it.
Yeah.
Down about 6 inches. That's probably a real loud sound. Left-hander has a new baseball with which to work. Another 3-2. Got him swinging. Came up and in with a fastball, and Chu is gone. 3 up, 3 down. Couple of pitchers used by the Twins, but the Rangers are out. We'll take the stretch here in Minneapolis. Rangers leading 2-0.
Texas leads the Twins by a score of 2-0. This will be the first appearance for Keone since he was optioned back down to the minor leagues to kind of reset things a little bit. Here's what he had to say about the experience.
So look at my season and try to, look at the positives rather than the negatives, and then utilize those positives and bring them back here while we get here in Minnesota, and just continue to attack the season as I have been, and do my best.
Because he was used so heavily in the first half of the season, the Rangers felt it important for him to kind of get down, catch his breath, and get his arm refreshed a little bit as we head down the stretch run. He seems to have taken it all in stride and realizes that it was just part of the plan, guys.
All right, Ed, thanks very much. And he is in here to face Torrey Hunter and pops in 2 quick strikes at 97 and 98 miles an hour. So apparently he did get refreshed. Keone overall his 50th appearance of the year. We have not seen him at the big league level since the 30th of July. That was a game against the Yankees at home. A little bit high at 100. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Torrey tonight out on a fine play by Adrian Beltre in the second. And last time up in the 5th, Hunter fly to right. Kellogg with the 1-2 pitch.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
Yep. That it is.
No changeups, no curveballs. Here's my heat. Looking for the outside corner. You see the glove, and there's the ball. Came back a little bit right at the end, but it's going 97. You can still get a swing and a miss, even if it is a good strike.
Well, 1 away. Now Eddie Rosario will step in. Rosario is 1 for 2. And an infield single his last time up. One of just 3 hits for the Twins tonight. It's going outside for ball 1. Kellogg with 47 strikeouts and 43 2/3 innings. League hitting a little higher against him than you would expect, a 260 average. But that'll come down the more that Keone figures out about what he's all about on the mound. Young man, just 22 years of age, and he is inexperienced at the big league level, certainly, but inexperienced pitching wise. He just hasn't had that much time on the hill. He's made amazing strides this year. 1-1 pitch.
Good pitch. Yeah, when you look at the Ranger bullpen now for the stretch run the last couple of months, it's set up pretty nicely. And the good thing about it is it's set up pretty nicely for years to come, too. All of the guys. Diekman, Freeman, Tollison, Tyson, Dyson, Kella. They're all signed for the future. Anthony Bass and Patton round out what's a really solid bullpen right now. Ouch.
Yeah. Good thing it's a warm night. That doesn't hurt quite as bad. Elvis takes care of that pop-up. 2 gone. Kurt Suzuki coming up before he steps in. Let's send it back to John Radigan for a Mazda game break. All right, John, thank you.
You know, Buzz, if you talk about the bullpen and the prospects that they have for the present and the future, then you talk about the starting rotation. Hamels, Darvish, Holland, Perez at the start of next year. And a lot of candidates to fill out that staff. Pitching's looking pretty good.
Yeah, it sure is, Tom. I don't know about Darvish for the start of the year, but we'll
eventually at some point in time.
He probably is on the same kind of timetable that Perez was for this year, I would think. Maybe a little bit quicker. But yeah, in any event, you get him back, and you've got 4
waiting in the wings anyway.
Exactly, and you've got some guys that can get the ball game deep a lot, and then you've got the bullpen that can cut down every ball game to maybe a 5 or 6 inning game for the opposition.
Sure.
Suzuki has popped out and walked tonight. It's a count of 1 ball and 1 strike. Kellen continuing to let it go at 97 or 98 miles an hour. And down.
And if you're the Twins, you're probably saying, well, glad Dyson's out of there. Well, Kello will be gone next inning. Then they'll probably see Jake Diekman come in for the 8th inning. That's right. He'll be throwing left-handed just as hard as the guys in front of him.
Something when you look to the closer to have a respite.
Yeah, then you throw you that changeup.
Yeah.
Let you swing at it twice before it gets there.
That one got in on Suzuki's fist. check in with Emily.
You guys were talking about Yu Darvish. He's set to meet with team Dr. Keith Meister this week. He'll have his 5-month evaluation. If all goes well and he gets the all clear, he will begin a throwing program very soon thereafter, guys.
Great.
Thank you, Em. Good information. Yep. The best thing about that, now that his elbow is fixed, is they know exactly where you should be and where you should start throwing and how much to do. And
no guesswork in that rehab, is there?
No, not in that rehab. Going outside, there's the first off-speed pitch, if you want to call 88 off-speed, that Keone has offered. Ryan Dunsing, left-hander, loosening in the Twins bullpen. Keone Kela, the third pitcher used tonight by Jeff Bannister. Giovanni Gallardo went the first 5 2/3. Sam Dyson finished up the 6th inning with the third. And that pitch, there's that hard curveball that Suzuki somehow managed to lay off of. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Keone about ready to throw his 15th pitch of this inning, and that is a good sign. Keone to the point where he's minimizing the number of pitches he throws. That's going to do nothing but help him. Suzuki able to turn on that 97-mile-an-hour fastball and pulled it foul.
Yeah, if you're going to sell out to get that far out in front of a 97-mile-an-hour fastball, you are a little susceptible to anything else.
Now time called. Dan Bellino, the home plate umpire, said Chris Jimenez asked for time. So Chris going out there to mention something to Keone and Adrian Beltre. Going to put his input into the conversation. And I would think if you're a pitcher and catcher, that'd be a good input to have. If Adrian decides to come over there and say something, it'd probably be worth your time to listen to.
I'm listening. And I'm going to do what he says, too.
Yeah, most likely.
Even if I think it's wrong, I'm going to do what he says, and I'm going to feel like it's the right thing.
3-2 pitch. Said, get him to hit the ball to me.
Hit it to third. That's what he said.
Cross the diamond, that'll do it. So Kela, 16-pitch inning, and the Twins are down in order. We're going to the 8th. Rangers 2, Twins nothing. Is the man who supplied the power to the Ranger offense, Elvis Andrus. Powering a line drive right out of the ballpark. A 2-run blast that has been all the scoring by either team tonight. TXU Energy power player, Elvis Andrus. It has been a very well played ball game tonight. Very well pitched ball game by both sides. Prince Fielder will lead things off here in the Ranger 8th inning. Fielder, Beltre, and Moreland. Ryan O'Rourke, who finished the 7th inning, goes to work on Prince Fielder, leaves the breaking ball high for ball 1. Fielder 2 for 3, another multi-hit game tonight. Now with the average up to 328. Pulls it into the hole, diving stop. Mauer, that was a little awkward, scrambling to the
slow motion dive.
But he gets Fielder, and Prince retired for the first out here in the 8th inning. Looked like Joe Mauer couldn't decide whether to dive or not, so he's laid down. Now Paul Molitor back out to the mound, and Ryan O'Rourke had gotten the 2 left-handers he was tasked with facing, Shin-Soo Choo to end the 7th inning, and Prince Fielder to start the 8th inning. So that'll do it for the left-hander. Another pitching change underway here at Target Field. We're back right after this. The #1 app for live baseball. At Bat is up to the moment at any moment with in-game highlights, live look-ins, replay reviews, radio broadcasts, StatCasts, and a lot more. At MLB.com at Bat for your smartphone or tablet. Kevin Jepsen, hard throwing right-hander now on. The 31-year-old came over at the trade deadline this year to the Twins from Tampa Bay. Jepsen, 51 appearances overall, record of 2-6. The opposition hitting just .217. He has struck out 38 in 45 innings. Adrian Beltre to face Jepsen. High and tight goes the first fastball. It is 1-0. Beltre 0 for 3 tonight, a couple of ground outs and a strikeout. Jepsen to the plate, and Beltre fouls that back right over our heads. People down below is looking straight up, waiting for it to come down.
I still think it's coming
to.
back. The only way that ball is coming back is if a dad gave it to his little boy and his little boy throws it back. Otherwise, it's settled in.
That dad kept it. So this is mine. 1 ball, 1 strike. Now 2-1. Beltre back in the batter's box. Jepson toe in the rubber. Now the right-hander is ready. On the outside corner. Took something off, and the count is now even at 2-2. Jepson came over from the Rays in exchange for a couple of minor leaguers. That was really the only deal that Minnesota Twins made at the deadline. There had been some folks in the Twin Cities that were suggesting, go ahead and go for it. The Twins are playing well. They're right in the thick of the playoff race. And the Twins decided, we're not really in a position where one or two guys is going to put us over the hump in our estimation. So we're going to keep our young players for the most part. Terry Ryan, their general manager. And that's not an easy decision to make, is it, Tom?
It's not an easy decision to sell to the public, right, or maybe to your players. But if you're Terry Ryan, I think it's probably an easy decision to make, because it's too hard to develop these young players. And the Twins have developed 5 or 6 of, the top 40 or 50 young players in baseball. And they've made nice strides this year. They've had a good season. But to all of a sudden say we're putting all our eggs in one basket and we think we can win, you might be ending up disappointed that you didn't win this year, and then you look back and you go, where have those 2 or 3 best prospects gone? So right. I would say what they're doing right now is the best way to go. Build off this next year and continue to develop the young players. They're not just young players that the Twins think are good players. They're young players that everybody in baseball recognizes are very good young players.
Sure.
So I wouldn't look at the Twins and say, boy, if you go out and get player X or player Y, that you're going to be a favorite to win. And for sure, they're not going to catch Kansas City. So the best they're going to be is a wild card team. And if they're a wild card team, who knows? Then it's pot luck. All right, you're the wild card team. It's pot luck. You get knocked out in that first game.
Right.
You look back and go, well, we're the wild card team. Where's our prospects? How are we going to do it again next year? Because they're not going to be the kind of team that can go out and sign the highest price free agents. That's not going to work. So the best way is to develop your own players, and Terry Ryan is very well respected in that regard, and I think they're headed in the right direction. Stay the course.
Another 3-2 to Adrian. Dozier down to one knee and on to first. That is out number 2.
Well, there comes a time where it becomes the right thing to do, just like Houston has done this year. You develop a few more young players and get a little bit more depth, kind of like the Rangers did. And then you can afford to trade some of your young players. But I'm not sure that the Twins have developed that kind of depth to be able to afford and have the depth where you can trade several young players.
Right.
But there will come a time where they'll be able to do that. And they'll feel better about their chances when they acquire the guy, whether it's a Scott Kazmir or Carlos Gomez, whoever it might be. When you can acquire those kind of players and then feel, all right, we can win this division now, and then that's when it's time. I don't think they could look at it and certainly not going to feel like they're going to win the division. That's for sure. I don't care who they get, Mickey Mantle and Ted Williams. They're not going to catch Kansas City.
No, not trailing by 12 games with Kansas City playing pretty good baseball too. Moreland hits it sharply, but right there is the third baseman Plouffe. He fires on to first. That will do it. Rangers gone in 1-2-3 fashion after 7.5 it remains. The Rangers 2 and the Twins nothing.
score of 2-0. Jake Diekman on the mound for your Texas Rangers. This the opener of a 3-game series between these two teams, which means Game 2 will be tomorrow right here on Fox Sports Southwest. Another 7 o'clock first pitch. We'll get you going before the game, 30 minutes before with Rangers Live. There you see a couple of the hottest hitting guys since the All-Star break. Each one, Ruben Odor and Aaron Hicks, leads their team in hitting since the All-Star break. You can see them both in action tomorrow right here on Fox Sports Southwest. A big thanks to AT&T Uverse for getting us ready for Game 2, guys.
All right, and thank you. Well, the Rangers have turned to yet another reliever, hard thrower coming out of the bullpen, Jake Diekman. Diekman, the 28-year-old, appearing in his 7th ball game. And he takes over to start the 8th inning. First pitch in for strike 1 at 97 miles an hour to Eduardo Escobar. Diekman last appeared in Seattle over the weekend. Worked a couple of innings. Perfect baseball. Had 4 strikeouts in those 2 innings. So Diekman, in his 6 innings of work this year, has allowed a grand total of 1 hit with 2 walks and 5 strikeouts. It's fouled off. The count is 0-2.
I think the radar gun's stuck at like 97 and 98.
Yeah. Well, if you're
Diekman.
If you happen to be a pitcher, that's a pretty good number to have it stuck on.
Dyson was right about there himself. He might have had a couple 96s though.
Pitch popped up way up there. Foul ball that Chu and Odor are coming over for, but it's back about 2 rows, and Rougned was about ready to climb in there after it. Still 0-2.
Both knew exactly where they were in regards to the wall. A couple of Ranger fans there, right in the front row.
Rougned going after foul balls like anything else he does. He doesn't see a foul ball that he doesn't think he can get to. He just never stops. Escobar back in there. Diekman ready. Left-hander with another 0-2 pitch. He tried the breaking ball. Left it outside. Jake Diekman, of course, a Ranger since coming over from the Phillies. Along with Cole Hamels, that trade at the trade deadline. 2-2 now. Diekman with Philadelphia was 2-1 with a 5.15 ERA, and you know, we were kind of kidding the other day, how in the world can this guy ever had a 5.15 ERA, but he did, and Rangers happy to have him over here to see if he can get that down a little bit, which he will. Keeps throwing the way he is now. What I want to know is how in the world did the National League get 268 against this guy?
Yeah, I can't answer that for you. I don't know. He gave up 40 hits and 36 innings over there. He walked 24 guys, which 24 guys in 36 innings is a few too many walks.
Tried the inside, just missed off the plate. The count is full. Well, Escobar trying to start off the 8th inning for the Twins by getting aboard the top of the order, and Aaron Hicks is next. Diekman ready. Payoff pitch. Lost him. Well, the leadoff man aboard, and now Aaron Hicks, who we talked about, the switch hitter. Much better from the right side than the left, and he will hit from his stronger side here against Diekman. Hicks for the year, if you remember, hitting .368 as a right-handed batter. As a left-hander, .245. Tonight 0 for 3, all of those, however, as a left-handed batter. That's off the glove of Jimenez and over into the dugout of the Twins. So down to second goes Escobar. I don't know whether Chris got crossed up on that or no.
That was similar to the one the other day.
Yep, just missed it. Pass ball charged to Chris Jimenez. Well, Escobar now in scoring position. Nobody out here in the 8th inning. Rangers have that 2-0 lead. Jake Diekman trying to protect that. It's out of play. Hicks slicing it to the right. 1 ball and 1 strike. The only hit that Jake Diekman has given up as a Ranger came against the Astros back on the 5th of the month in Arlington. Hicks showing bunt, pulled the bat back. It is 2-1. It's a fly ball to medium center field. Delino DeShields camped under it. Escobar staying at second. He's there with 1 away now. And Brian Dozier coming up. So Jake Diekman able to rebound after the walk to get Hicks. Now you got to deal with a tough right-handed hitter in Dozier.
Yeah, he's the guy I'd be worried about. He can turn around a fastball too. Just have to be careful, make good pitches. Try to make the ball sink, make the ball tail away from him so he can't pull it.
You mentioned, Tom, that pinch hit home run that Dozier had in the All-Star game. He was the 3rd Twin to ever homer in the Midsummer Classic. First pitch to him is on the outside corner for strike 1. Kirby Puckett and Harmon Killebrew also had home runs as Twins in the All-Star game. 0-1 pitch. Hit deep to left field. If it's fair, it's trouble. It is foul.
That's exactly what you're talking about there. He can pull a fastball. You just have to keep it out of the location where he can pull it. You can't throw it by him. Trying to throw it away, but it comes in. And fortunately, he pulled it foul. He's one of the few guys in the lineup. Not that they don't have good hitters in the lineup, but he's one of the few that can pull that 96-mile-an-hour fastball on the inside corner.
No balls and 2 strikes. Escobar out at second base. That ball is hit well to left center field. Going back to Shields. Reaches up, makes the catch. Delino DeShields outran that baseball to the track and made a great play.
I thought that was a home run. He's got home run power. He's hit 24 of them, and he hit that exactly on the sweet spot of the bat, and the ball jumped off his bat. Fortunately, Delino was playing a little bit deep with a tying run at the plate, kind of no doubles territory, sprinted back and caught it in front of the wall. That ball was hit very hard, and probably under a normal alignment would have been over his head. But there's one example of playing a little bit deeper to prevent a double played in your favor, and he ran that ball down.
My goodness. He had about 40 yards to cover in no time.
Not much time to do it either. Boy, Dozier almost hit one down the left field line, almost hit that one to 411 in left center field.
Now here's Joe Mauer, who takes a strike at the knees. So the leadoff walk is almost Cost Jake Diekman a couple of times, but able to survive so far and try to get Mauer and work completely around that walk. Mauer, a single and a walk in 3 trips tonight. 1 for 2 officially. Tried the breaking ball and missed with it low. 1 ball and 1 strike. Mauer, 47 runs driven in this year.
Mauer's unlikely to pull his fastball. He's probably going to hit it to left field. And in this park, as opposed to the old ballpark, not as likely to have the power to hit it out of here to left field.
That was smoked to left. It is by Hamilton and to the wall. Around third, coming in to score is Escobar. Into second with the RBI double is Joe Mauer. And it's now a 2-1 Ranger lead.
Yeah, Mauer hit that ball nicely. Last 2 guys have really hit the ball hard. Mauer's not going to pull it, and he's probably not going to hit a home run. But he found the gap and hit a bullet into the gap.
That's one thing that Mauer does as well as any left-hander is hit left-handed pitching. He takes the ball that way.
Yeah, he does.
No, Mike Maddox out to talk to Jake Diekman and to Chris Jimenez. Tying run at second base, and you've got first base open. And the big DH, Miguel Sano, is the hitter. Sano tonight is 1 for 2 with a walk and a single. Well, the question, I guess, is do you pitch to Sano or do you risk putting the go-ahead run aboard with an intentional pass?
Yeah, I think I got to pitch to him right here. You've got a rookie hitter, even though he's a good hitter. But Plouffe is a pretty good RBI guy hitting next, so I think you got to make some pitches and try to get Sano.
Now Chris Jimenez down behind the plate, flashing the sides out. Jake Diekman ready, and the first pitch to Sano is on the way. 1 ball, no strikes. And again, Sano not going out of the strike zone, just refusing to swing, at least early in the count, at anything that's not in the heart of the zone. Mauer carrying the tying run out at second base. One ball and 1 strike.
Good location with it, kept it away from him.
Diekman a check of second. Man back to the plate. A little bit high, 2-1. Sano ranked as the 11th best prospect in baseball this year by MLB.com. Second best in the Twins system. Fouls that off to the right. That evens the count at 2-2. Also rated the best power hitter in the Twins system according to Baseball America. Early glimpses of it so far. 5 home runs for him. Diekman ready, the 2-2 pitch. Laid off the breaking ball. Full count. Now, as we showed you, if Sano gets on base to extend this inning, Trevor Plouffe will follow in the order. A 2-1 Ranger lead. We play in the bottom of the 8th. Payoff pitch hit to deep right field. Chu is back at the wall. It's off the wall. Mauer scores into second with the RBI double. Miguel Sano and the Twins have tied it. It is a 2-2 ball game.
Well, there's one of the reasons the Twins like Sano so much. He's got power to all fields. And he stayed with that ball with 2 strikes. and drove it hard to right field. Last three guys have really hit the ball hard, trying to stay away from him. I think Sano probably sensed that and just went the other way with power.
That'll do it for Jake Diekman as Jeff Bannister out to the mound. Diekman has given up the 2 runs on 2 hits and a walk. He leaves with property at second base, his responsibility. We'll take a timeout for this pitching change. Back after this on Fox Sports Southwest. Patton on to take over for Jake Diekman. And Patton will be pitching with the go-ahead run at second base and 2 outs. He'll deal with Trevor Plouffe. Patton in his 22nd appearance of the year. Spencer, a 27-year-old out of Illinois, or Urbana, Illinois is where he was born. Have a pinch runner at second base. We'll tell you about him in just a second. Trevor Plouffe goes after the slider with no success. That is strike 1. Shane Robinson has come off the bench, the speedy outfielder for the Minnesota Twins. He is pinch running for Sano at second. Plouffe tonight 0 for 3, is grounded out twice and flied to right field. Patton a couple of looks back to second. Misses off the outside corner. 1-1. Last time we saw Spencer Patton in Seattle on Friday night, worked an inning and 2/3, gave up a couple of hits, no runs, one struck out 2, did not walk anybody. Last 3 times out have been scoreless. Excellent work. He gets a strike on the inside corner.
No doubt about that strike. I think Plouffe thought that was a ball because he was looking out over the plate. Just wasn't ready for being pounded in with a fastball. A good pitch right there. You throw another one in there or set up a slider away. 3 good pitches so far.
Patton with the 1-2 pitch coming. Got him swinging. Slider, Plouffe angrily throwing his equipment away, and that'll do it. Patton comes in and puts out the fire, but the Twins tie it. They get 2 runs on 2 hits and a walk and leave 1. We're going to the 9th tied at 2. A tie ball game. The Twins come up with a couple of runs in the 8th inning, so we go to the 9th. Josh Hamilton will start things off, and a new pitcher on the hill for the Minnesota Twins. And it's Glenn Perkins, their closer. He's come in to work this 9th inning.
I remember Josh hit a ball against Glenn Perkins here a couple of years ago. Right center field, 3-run homer. Perkins probably remembers it too. He's pitching give him that same fastball.
He's pitching like he remembers it very well. Josh with a base hit tonight in 2 official trips. He got one up to work with, but popped it up. Left side of the diamond. Escobar, the shortstop, calling off Plouffe. That is out number 1. Next will be Elvis Andrus. Well, Perkins taking over as the closer for the Minnesota Twins. 2 years ago, 2013, had 36 saves and 34 saves last year. He has become one of the best closers in the game. He rifles one right at Plouffe, and Elvis rocked as that ball was hit right on the nose.
So we've talked about a lot of balls that Elvis has hit to left field. He hasn't hit any harder than this. Got a ball in the inside part of the plate and just smoked it right at third base. If he got that up in the air, he would have hit that up in the second deck. Well, a couple of good at bats for Elvis in this game.
So far, 2 for 4, and now Rougned Odor will try to keep this 9th inning going for the Rangers. Odor 0 for 3. So his 8-game hitting streak might be on the line here. Perkins back to him. 1 ball and 1 strike. Perkins, a 32-year-old, born in St. Paul, right across the river from Minneapolis. 1 ball, 2 strikes. First round pick by the Twins back in the 2004 draft. One and 2. Lined over the leap of Plouffe into left field. So Perkins trying to get a little cute with that breaking ball, left it on the plate, and Rougned Odor extends his hitting streak to a career high best 9 straight ball games. Nice going, Rougned.
Drives that pitch outside corner. Nice job of hitting right there. 2 hard hit balls. 1 caught at the third baseman and 1 just barely over the third baseman's head.
And now for the second time in 3 days, Mike Napoli is going to play a role here in the 9th inning. This is what the Rangers got Mike Napoli for, to play against left-handed pitching and come off the bench in late game situations as a pinch hitter against left-handed pitching. Nap has had 1 at bat, and that was Sunday in the 9th. Facing Perkins here with the go-ahead run at first and 2 away. Takes strike 1. Perkins back to him. Pulled the string and had Napoli out in front. Now the 0-2. Tapper foul. Knapp now 33 years old. Had a couple of outstanding years with the Rangers, the championship years. The time was called. Perkins set to go a little too quickly as far as Knapp was concerned. Now Napoli ready to go. Odor away from first. Pitch just missed. 1 ball, 2 strikes. And Knapp kind of slumping his shoulders like he thought that was going to be called a strike.
It was close.
Went by. Now the 1-2. That one is in there. And Napoli throws it at home plate. Well, the Rangers get a hit in the ninth, but strand a runner. We're going to the bottom of the ninth. It's the Rangers 2 and the Twins 2. Ford is the best in Texas. Now, Target Field on a very comfortable evening. The breeze has died down. It's temperature in the mid-70s. Spencer Patton back to the hill. Patton came on to get the final out of the 8th inning, and now he will try and send us to extra innings. Bobby Wilson, his new battery mate, and the first pitch is a slider for ball 1. Torrey Hunter 0 for 3 tonight. He has grounded out, flied out, and struck out. It'll be Hunter, Rosario, and Suzuki. Ball 2 is low and outside. The Twins trailing 2-0 entering the bottom of the 8th inning. Got a leadoff walk to their number 9 hitter, Eduardo Escobar. And that proved to be problematic. With 2 outs, Joe Mauer doubled him home. And with 2 outs, Miguel Sano doubled Mauer home to tie the ball game. Two and 1 to Torrey Hunter. Jeff Bannister. Yeah, he had to have felt pretty confident about laying out the use of the bullpen the way he did. And that was just the way he draw it up.
Yeah, everything fit exactly how he wanted it to.
2 balls, 2 strikes.
Leadoff walk came back to hurt, no doubt about it. 9th place hitter, leadoff hitter of that inning. That was Eduardo Escobar. He drew the walk, and then the middle of the lineup hit the ball hard. Dozier, Mauer, Sano all hit the ball hard.
Hunter hits one in the air to right field. This one's playable as Chu backs up shy of the warning track. Out number 1. Hunter retired. Now Eddie Rosario will step in against Spencer Patton.
Yep, far enough away that Hunter couldn't get the good part of the bat on the ball. Hit it toward the end. Hit it pretty well, but going to be very difficult for him to hit the ball 375 feet off the end of the bat.
Rosario 1 for 3 this evening. Patton backdoors that slider for strike 1. Rosario's single was of the infield variety back in the 5th inning. Other than that, he has popped out and struck out. Check swing. The appeal down to third. No swing. According to Paul Schreiber down there. Patton pulling the string. Left it up a little bit, but Rosario out in front of it.
And he dropped it right on the outside corner, too.
Now Rosario, tired of waiting, he backs out. About a 15-mile-an-hour speed differential, top to bottom. Pitch in the dirt. And the count goes even now at 2-2. $26,663 on hand here tonight. Patton just missing down and away. A full count. So Rosario trying to get aboard with the winning run. Kurt Suzuki, the 8th place hitter, is in that on-deck circle. Payoff pitch from Patton. Over the mound, behind second. Elvis, a quick release, got it. Nice play by the Rangers shortstop.
Good anticipation by Elvis. He knew he had to get rid of it quickly. If he took his time, Rosario probably would have been able to beat it.
No, 2 outs now. Kurt Suzuki, the only one standing between Spencer Patton and extra innings here tonight. First pitch slider makes it 1 ball and no strikes. Misses low and inside, at least according to Dan Bellino. 2-0. Now 2-1 on the foul ball. Suzuki tonight has popped to short, walked, and grounded to third. Twins with 5 hits, the Rangers with 8 hits. Patton back to the plate. Popped up down the right field line. Long run over for Chu, and the ball slicing back into the third row. 2-2 now. Suzuki, a .228 average. Stepping back into that batter's box. Patton into the wind. Ball 3. Again, a full count. Suzuki this time trying to get aboard with 2 outs. Eduardo Escobar, the shortstop, follows in the order. Payoff pitch from Patton. Lost him. Suzuki coaches the 2-out walk. So the Twins have the winning run aboard here in the 9th inning. Eduardo Escobar, who started off the 8th inning by drawing a walk, will step to the plate. Escobar 0 for 2 officially tonight. He has grounded out the other 2 times, along with that walk and a run scored. Suzuki inching off of first base. And the first pitch is high and away for ball 1. Patton sets a check of first. 2 balls, no strikes, and Bobby Wilson going to make a well-timed visit to the mound. Ryan Spencer, that now we don't have to be that fine.
Yeah,
with the 9th hitter.
I think that's exactly what he's doing with Suzuki and now Escobar, trying to make the perfect pitch.
And Mike Maddox out there to reinforce the idea that you need to throw strikes here, good strikes. Escobar with 4 home runs for the year. Suzuki had 4 home runs too, so these guys aren't leaving the ballpark on a regular basis. Two and nothing the count. Yeah, there's one right down the middle. 2-1. Escobar, much better hitter from the left side of the plate than he is right-handed, about a 64-point difference. A little tardy on that fastball. It's 2-2. Spencer just needed a little direction.
Pound the strike zone.
That's right. The 2-2 pitch. Full count, and now Suzuki get the advantage of a running start from first. Pitch will play behind him a step or two with the left-hander Escobar at the plate. If Escobar succeeds in getting on, the top of the order is next. Suzuki on the move, pitches line to right, a base hit, and it bounces off the sidewall. Suzuki being waved around. Here comes the throw from Chu. It is not in time. And the Twins walk it off against the Rangers. A 2-out RBI double by Eduardo Escobar. The Twins come back to score 2 in the 8th, 1 in the 9th, and defeat the Rangers 3-2. And Suzuki getting mobbed, or I should say Escobar getting mobbed out there by second base as he gets the walk-off game winner for the Twins tonight. And oh, what a tough one to swallow if you're in the Rangers dugout. Twins have been struggling. You had them exactly where you wanted them. Giovanni Gallardo gave them almost 6 innings of good baseball. He had them shut out through 7. Then you give them an opening, and to their credit, the Twins come back and tie the game after 8 and win it in walk-off fashion.
Yeah, that's one of the examples, Buzz, why you don't want to run the count to 3-2 with a couple of outs if you don't have to. So the runner's now running on the play. And in both the 8th inning and the 9th inning, it was a walk that hurt in each inning. A walk started the 8th inning. Escobar walked to lead it off, came around to score. And then with 2 outs, Suzuki walked, and he came around to score, running on the 3-2 pitch on the double by Escobar. So late inning heroics by Eduardo Escobar. Walked and scored, and then doubled in the winner an inning later.
So 3-2 the final, as the Rangers can't subdue the Twins here tonight. We'll come back with some final thoughts, and right after this to Target Field, 3-2 the final. The Twins win.